Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. That's what I wanted to know. That should I go for reintroduction?
No,
Uh,
Jayashree ma'am, I guess Mamta ma'am deserves that reintroduction also because we just cannot not introduce madam such great achievements. Mamta
yeah,
ma'am,
that's
please
the
allow us. Mamta ma'am, please allow us.
Okay, ma'am.
yeah, because ma'am, your academic achievement, your academic context, when I see, it is like, it's more than 1.5 page. It's full of like so many, I don't know, degrees and diplomas and certificate courses. And I think participants must know. Yeah. So I take this opportunity to reintroduce ma'am, who is going to conduct today's session on inferential data analysis using SPSS. Last time, ma'am conducted a session on descriptive data analysis using SPSS. So ma'am has more than 22 years of academic experience. At present, she is serving as Associate Professor of Quantitative Techniques and Research Methods at BK School of Professional and Management Studies, Gujarat University. Madam is also the head of Department of Business Intelligence at BK School and an academic coordinator of Institute of Defense Studies and Research, which is the institute supported by Government of Gujarat and the Defense Research and Development Organization. Prior to joining here, Madam was associated with National Institute of Cooperative Management, Gandhinagar, as assistant professor since 2001 and associate professor cum reader since 2007. Now come to Madam's academic journey. From with graduation from KS School of Business Management, then she went on to complete her MBA with specialization in finance. She has done her doctorate in banking management with a thesis entitled A Study on the Service Quality and Customer Satisfaction among Private, Public and Foreign Banks with reference to Gujarat region. To further strengthen her academic base, Madam has also done her master's in commerce with specialization in business finance from Gujarat University, where she was declared a topper. Dr. Brahmabhat Madam has also done her diploma in computer application, a certificate course in SPSS, a postgraduate diploma in research methodology from VNSGU Surat, where she was declared a first rank holder. Madam has cleared her NET in management and GSLET in commerce. So here we have an intellectual who believes in being a versatile academician. As part of her academic journey, Madam has presented as well as published papers in several major international and national refereed journals, and 23 of her research papers have received the Best Research Paper Awards. As of today, Madam has to her credit 210 plus published research papers and 30 books. Madam has conducted more than 270 sessions on research methods and SPSS, and she has been invited by 40 different universities for various other academic sessions. Madam was selected for Jewel of India Award by Economic Growth Society of India and is also the recipient of National Education Award for Best Professor in Operation Management and Education, Leadership Award from Devang Mehta National Education and Teaching Excellence Award by Higher Education Forum, Gujarat. She is also the recipient of MTC Global Distinguished Teachers Award Management 2020 and National Eminent Young Research Award, Researcher Award 2020 by International Institute of Organized Research. Madam, I think if I had not read it, it would have been an injustice, I think. It's
Thank you, madam, for the introduction.
yeah. So it is indeed an honor and a privilege to have you with us today. Thank you. And I now turn it over to you to begin your session. And participants, please ensure that you remain on mute during the session so that we get an uninterrupted session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope this whiteboard is visible. Good evening, participants.
Jayashree ma'am, you are also the host now. Please take care of that.
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Okay, so in the previous session, we have discussed the outcome of SPSS, or we have done the little bit of descriptive statistical analysis, like how to prepare the frequency distribution, what are the ways in which you can prepare the graphical representation of your data. So in today's session, we will be doing with the inferential data. Now, what is the basic difference between the two, descriptive and inferential data? Some of the faculty or the research scholars, they are asking me that if I am doing inferential statistics, then only that thesis is good. Without descriptive, you cannot do inferential. Yeah, so descriptive statistics is nothing but describing fact and figure. And inferential statistics, it is you have some hypothesis, you have some assumption, and you are testing that. So in the both the thing, we are concluding something. And here also there is a conclusion. And on the basis of conclusion, we are drawing the managerial implication out of that. So whether it is a descriptive data analysis or inferential data analysis, there are findings, there are conclusion, and you can draw the meaningful managerial implication out of that. So now you must almost, we all are faculties and we are in academic institution. You know that admission season is going on. So once the admission gets over, the first day we all are doing the orientation program. And during the orientation program, students, they are introducing themselves. Yeah, so first stage, when students, they are entering in the academic institute, the first thing we are doing the orientation function. And during the orientation function, students, they introduce themselves. So when students, they are introducing, I am preparing a frequency distribution like this. So people, they are saying that, yes, I am from BCom. So then I'm preparing, yes, 1 BCom student, 2, 3, 4, 5. Similarly, how many BBA students have enrolled for MBA program? So similar frequency distribution I am preparing. When students, they are introducing. Yeah. How many engineers? So similar way, when students, they are making introduction, I am preparing this kind of a frequency distribution. And on the basis of the frequency distribution, what I am doing? Yeah, this is what preparing a chart, frequency distribution. And frequency distribution, it is a part of a descriptive statistics. So at the end of our orientation function, I was able to say that there are 17 students from BBA. There are 13 students, so as BCom, 13 from BBA, and there are 50 students from engineering background. Yeah, so this is what? This is the data I have collected. On the basis of collected data, I am doing some conclusion. There are findings. So what is the major finding out of this? This is most of the students enrolled this time for the MBA program, they all are engineers. Yeah, so that is a major finding. Conclusion, if I am a placement officer of BK School of Business Management, what kind of a managerial implication I can draw out of that? So if I have to prepare a placement brochure, or when I will start my placement drive this year, I have to target the companies, those who are purely into engineering background. Clear? So descriptive statistics, it is describing the collected data. And after describing the collected data, you have to take a decision out of that. So here, what I have done, I have collected the data, and after the collection of a data, we are drawing some conclusion out of that. So we can represent the data in the form of pie chart also like this. Yeah, this is majority of engineer. Then this could be a BBA student, this could be BCom. Clear? So this is what? This is the graphical representation. So graphical representation, it is a one way of describing your collected data. Another way of describing it is through this frequency distribution. Yeah, so this is frequency distribution, maybe 17, 13, 50. You can make the percentage, cumulative percentage out of this. Clear? You can draw the percentage, you can prepare cumulative percentage. So descriptive data, it is nothing but whatever the data you have collected, that collected data you are representing in the form of charts or in frequency distribution, or maybe in the form of a probability distribution also. Clear? So what kind of a probability distribution we are preparing? We are preparing the normality, this distribution. Yeah, this is the normal distribution. So once you collect the data out of a collected data, when you are preparing a frequency tables, you can make any graph. When you prepare normal distribution out of that, it is nothing but it is describing your collected data. And after describing the collected data, you are concluding, yes, if this time if I go for majority of a FMCG company, it will not serve the placement purpose. This time my target will be industrial companies. for the industrial sector, because most of them are engineers. So that is the conclusion, that is the managerial implication I am drawing out of a collected data. Clear? So descriptive statistics is what it is: collecting the data, describing the collected data. After describing the data, you are taking a decision out of that. So what decision I have taken? So if I'm sending the brochure to 100 companies, now this time this 100 company, maybe 80 company I have to target to the purely for engineer, and 20 company I can target like banking, finance, or FMCG company. So this is what, this is a decision I have taken as after looking at the data. The next thing it is, so in the descriptive statistics analysis, we never have hypothesis. कभी भी hypothesis नहीं होता है, clear? So in descriptive statistics also, you are describing a data, you are making major, you are drawing major findings out of that, you are concluding, and you are making some interpretation out of that without help of hypothesis. Now the second branch of the statistics, it is inferential statistics analysis. Here, compulsorily I have hypothesis in the inferential statistics. So how descriptive and inferential, they are different from each other. In descriptive statistics, we don't have any hypothesis. We are not having any assumption. But in inferential statistics, we always start with the assumption. I think the hypothesis testing thing, it is already done by Sangeeta madam. So you know what is hypothesis. What is hypothesis? Anyone? What is hypothesis? Because that way, that is a base for my inferential statistics this session. Anyone? Yes, somebody is writing in chat box. No, nobody is writing. What is hypothesis? What is null hypothesis? How to draw hypothesis for the statistical data? Anyone? I think this session is done. Nobody is writing in chat box, so you don't know? Somebody is written. It is an assumption. Yes, it is assumption. Assumption about what? The second question. You can unmute yourself. हाँ, जयश्री मैडम ही बता रहे हैं. Some assumption on which research will be going on. Okay. Any other thing? What is hypothesis? Hypothesis, it is assumption, but assumption about what? That I am interested in knowing. Yes, it is correct. It is hypothesis, it is assumption. Somebody is writing H0 is null and H1 is alternative. Yes, correct. It is results. So hypothesis, it is nothing but the assumption. Assumption we are making about population parameter. Yeah. Assumption when we are making about population parameter, that becomes the hypothesis. So I think on that day I have already talked what is population parameter. So population parameter, it is any value which you calculate on the basis of the whole population. So last time bataya tha ki if I have a 150 or a respondent, how if all 150 respondent, they are giving the answer to my question that how many hours they are spending in the library, I will get the average. But that average, it is not denoted by X bar, that is denoted by mu. Yeah. So in social science research, we are never doing the population survey. We are doing sample survey. We are doing sample survey. And that's why we have to make an assumption. So in last session, we have covered like what is population, what is sample. When you are taking into consideration each and every unit of your research, then that becomes population. So capital N, it is population, small n, it is sample. When you are making calculation on the basis of each and every unit of a study, then that mean we are saying it is mu, here it is X bar. Yeah. So almost all the social science researcher, we are never going for a population survey.
Ma'am?
Yes.
There is one question. Are you taking the question during the session or
I'll take. Yes, I'll take that.
There is one question in the chat. For descriptive stats, do we need to know full population?
I'll answer that. Okay. Descriptive statistics is also a part of your research. So if you are going for a whole population, then also descriptive statistics can be prepared. But if you are taking a sample out of that, then from the sample also you can prepare a descriptive statistic. So for our thesis, we are taking sample, we are not taking population as a whole. So whatever the data you have collected, you have to describe that data. So collected sample information, when you are describing it, is called descriptive statistics. Okay, so almost all social science researcher, we are never going for a population survey. Most of us, we are going for sample survey. Government, when they are doing the census, or when they are going for a Aadhaar card, or when how many people they are staying below poverty line, so that time they are going for a population survey. Except government and few NGOs, we all are going for a sample survey. So if you are not collecting the population data, that means this particular thing is missing. New, it is not known. Clear? This thing, it is unknown. When you are collecting the information on the basis of sample, that means your X bar, it is known. You have collected data, out of your collected data, you can calculate this. So you can calculate this data X bar. That means this particular value, it is known to us. But we have never collecting the information from the population. That means the value of mu, it is always unknown. So whenever we are doing the hypothesis testing, we are making the assumption about the population parameter values. Population parameter value, that means the whatever the calculation you are performing on the population information, it is called population parameter value. So population parameter value comes from population. Sample statistics comes from sample. Now we are never collecting this information, so that's why this information, it is always unknown, and this will be known to us. Yeah. So when something is unknown, that means you have to make an assumption. So this is called assume value. And the thing which you have collected, on the basis of your collected information, you are making some calculation. So after making the calculation, that things is known. So this value, it is always calculated value. Yeah, this value, it is calculated. So when you are doing the hypothesis testing, we are making assumption about the population parameter values because they are always unknown. The thing which is unknown, for that only we have to make the assumption. And in the process of hypothesis testing, what we are doing, we are trying to compare this to value. What is my assumed value and what is my calculated value? We are trying to compare this to value, and then wo question hum likhte hain. Is there any significant difference between the two? If difference is significant, that hypothesis, it is rejected. Clear? So hypothesis, then somebody has written, yes, it is assumption. But assumption about what? Assumption, it is always we are making about the population parameter values because that is always unknown to us. Clear? What is null hypothesis? As the name suggests, the null hypothesis, it is the hypothesis we are always testing for a possible rejection. Null hypothesis, it is always tested for possible rejections, and there are reasons behind that. Yeah. So the branch, legal as the side of social science, from that this concept, it is there. Yeah, so आपने देखा होगा वो डिफेंस लॉयर और लॉयर जब कोर्ट में केस लड़ते हैं तब, और हमें बहुत बार पता भी है कि क्या है वो, मैं भूल गई, पिक्चरों के डायलॉग बोलते हैं 100 लोग अगर चले छूट जाएंगे तो चलेगा, पर एक निर्दोष जो इंसान है उसको फांसी नहीं लगनी चाहिए. Yes, so what is that? We are trying to reject on the basis of our document. So whatever the documents and proof you have collected using your data, we are trying to reject the null hypothesis because null hypothesis definition itself is saying we have to nullify the effect of our assumption, and that's why the name it is null. Now, how can you reject the thing which you have never come across? आपको पता ही नहीं है कि ये चीज कहाँ से आया है. Clear? So that's why before doing anything, we are going for a pilot test. So we are going for a pilot study. Once you do the pilot study, that means your results are ready. Probable outcome, it is ready with you. Clear? So you, when you do research, what is the probable outcome of your research? It is known to us. And pilot testing, whatever the result you are getting, the same result you may get when you are doing that research on a grand scale. So बहुत बार class में हम बताते हैं कि when mummy they are cooking, If they are cooking for 50 people with this small spoon they are testing and then they are concluding के ये जो spoon में मैंने जो paste किया है वो ही सारे 50 लोगों के लिए बनाया है वही है. What is that? So when mama is testing the thing with the small spoon, it is what pilot testing. Okay? So pilot testing में जो outcome आ रहा है वही outcome when you are doing it on a grand scale वही होगा, that we are assuming. So in the null hypothesis, you have to visualize, you have to estimate your probable outcome. And probable outcome of your research will come when you go for a pilot testing. So null hypothesis का क्या है? It is always opposite to your probable result. It is always opposite to probable result. So what probable result you want out of your study, opposite to that you have to set the hypothesis, and that way you have to reject the null hypothesis. Clear? So null hypothesis, it is always tested for a possible rejection. You have to nullify the effect of your research or objective. So before finalizing your clear design, first you go for a pilot testing. Pilot testing में से जो result आता है, opposite to that you have to set the hypothesis and then you have to reject the hypothesis. Yeah. So many times students, they are asking me, madam, what happens if my hypothesis is accepted? Chances are there कि आपने जो pilot testing किया है उससे opposite result आ सकता है. And if it is coming, don't write that you are accepting the hypothesis. You write that you fail to reject. So we are never using the word accept in the hypothesis. You use reject or fail to reject. Let me check. Is there any question? Okay, no questions. So null hypothesis, there are faculty, they are saying that whenever you are writing anything with a negative statement, no, कोई भी negative statements है, when you are framing the hypothesis, it is null hypothesis. That is correct. Why we are writing null hypothesis with negative terminology? Because we need to reject that. So if you want to prove, yes, there is a correlation between gender and driving skill, you want to prove that. Yes, so that's why as if you are rejecting, that way you are setting the hypothesis that there is no correlation between gender and your driving skill. As if आपको वो hypothesis reject करना है, जो result आपको चाहिए उससे opposite में you set and then reject that. Yeah. So if you see almost all the hypotheses, they are negatively worded with one assumption, with one note, that whatever the hypothesis you are writing for your research objectives, that it is negatively worded, that is negatively framed. Whatever the hypothesis you are writing for checking the assumptions of your data, they are always positively worded. Yeah. So after collecting the data, before doing any analysis of that data, we want to prove the assumption, like whether data it is normally distributed or not, that you want to prove. Okay. So what is that? You are checking the data. Whether your data is proper for conducting the research, that you are checking, that is called assumption checking. So this assumption, it is for data. Yeah. And this assumption, it is for your research hypothesis. So whatever the hypothesis coming from your research question, from your research objective, it is always negatively worded. If you want to check the data, whether your data is appropriate for conducting that particular hypothesis, for that, whatever the hypothesis you are setting, it is positively worded. Like, example could be, first thing we are checking in our data, it is normality, normal distribution. Clear? So this is not your research objective. Your research objective is not it is not about checking the normality, but you want to check whether the data is appropriate for conducting the parametric hypothesis testing, and for that you are checking the normality. So hypothesis for normality test, it is data follows normality. I have seen many thesis research articles having negative word in the normality. That is wrong. Yeah. So whatever the data cleaning hypothesis you are having, that must be positively worded. So data follows normality. Data comes from the normal distribution. Data is normal. This is called positively worded hypothesis. Clear? Whether data follows randomness or not, if you want to check that, then we are saying that data follows randomness. Data is having random aspects in that. Clear? And for that, we are checking the run test. So randomness of a data can be checked using run test. Normality, if you want to check, you can do case test. So case test, run test, they are always positively written. If you want to check the variance equality, whenever you are making a comparison, the comparison is always between the comparable. So you can compare male and female. Yeah, because these two thing you can say it is comparable. You cannot compare me with the elephant. You cannot compare me with any other element. Like you can compare me with the male candidate. So this comparison is always between the comparable. So for that you can check the whether the data is having equal variance or not. So if you are going for 11 states, so then that hypothesis is also positively worded like data for or the variance is equal. Yeah, variance is equal. So variance is equal, data follows normality, data is random. These three things, these three hypotheses is positively worded because these three hypotheses is not related to your research question and research objective. And that's why it is positive. Clear? I think this is clear with all.
Yes, ma'am.
Null hypothesis. Null hypothesis is always with the negative framework. Any data cleaning or any data assumption you are checking, it is always positively worded. Now, what happens? जिसको ये difference नहीं पता है वो क्या करता है? कोई मैडम ने सिखाया था कि null hypothesis अभिन्न negative होना चाहिए. So then they are writing that data is not normal. Clear? Data is not normal. They say they reject the hypothesis and they conclude that data is normal. Actually, data normal nahi tha, and then they have concluded everything about through parametric testing. So वो सारा उनका एनालिसिस है वो गलत है. So एनालिसिस करने से पहले आपको डेटा का assumption check करना है. That is compulsory. Without checking the assumptions of any data, you cannot proceed further for interpretation or analysis of any statistical data. So null hypothesis, it is nothing but opposite to your probable outcome. You have to visualize your probable outcome of your research, and opposite to that, you have to set the null hypothesis. And alternative hypothesis is always opposite to your null hypothesis. Now, when I did my PhD, that time we used to report the null hypothesis in the thesis or in the research paper. But now the new fashion is we are not recording or we are not writing null hypothesis in the thesis. We are writing the alternative hypothesis. So alternative hypothesis, it is nothing but researcher claim. आपका क्या claim है? That we are writing in the research paper nowadays. So that is a change in reporting style. Null hypothesis, now we are not writing, we are writing the alternative hypothesis. That means we are writing the researcher claim in the hypothesis analysis. That's it. Just a minute. Okay. So let us start with the hypothesis. In the inferential statistics, some question is there. Okay, that is the feedback form. Hypothesis, will start with the family of t-tests first. Family of t-tests. Now in the family of t-tests, we have three type of a t-test. What are they? We'll discuss one by one. Independent sample t-test. We have one sample t-test. ये पहला होना चाहिए. One sample t-test, independent sample t-test, and the last we have the dependent related t-test.
Ma'am, there is one question in the chat box.
Okay, let me read. Ma'am means instead of alternative hypothesis, we write alternative hypothesis, it is researcher claim. So instead of null hypothesis, now you can write the alternative hypothesis. Researcher claim it, आपको क्या prove करना है? That is called researcher claim. So whatever you want to prove, it is your claim which is reflected in the alternative hypothesis. So alternative hypothesis nowadays it is reported in thesis or in the research paper. So alternative hypothesis, it is nothing but the researcher claim. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now there are three types of a t-test. One, it is the independent sample t-test. Second one, it is one sample t-test, and another it is a dependent related t-test. Now, the one sample t-test, that day we have discussed the measurement scale. So what kind of a measurement scale you are using, accordingly your statistical treatment which is different. So first we'll do the one sample independent t-test. One sample t-test, if you want to perform the one sample t-test, so performing the one sample t-test, you have to have a one question, and that must be scale question. That must be scale question. Now scale means it could be interval, it could be ratio. It could be interval, it could be ratio. So if you want to perform the one sample t-test for your data, then first question, आपके पास एक ऐसा question होना चाहिए which is scale in nature. When I'm saying a scale, it could be interval based, it could be ratio based. So say for an example, if I want to check that the average income of this group participant, how many participants are? Okay, right now there are 66 participants. So if I want to check that income of this group, so there are 67 may say I can select randomly any 10 participant on the basis of some characteristics. If I'm selecting 15 and if I'm calculating their income, I can check that yes, I have collected the income, and my hypothesis that income of this particular group, it is 50,000 per month. Yes, 50,000 per month. This is what, this is assumption. I want to check, and for checking this assumption, मेरे पास एक question है जो है income based. Income को मुझे scale में पूछना है. That means it should be open-ended question. अगर आपने income को इस तरह से पूछ दिया है, like 10,000 to 20,000. 20,000 to 40,000 and more than 40,000, then if you had asked income in this particular format, this is the ordinal question. With ordinal question, you will not be able to do one sample t-test. Nahi hoga. So if you want to perform a one sample t-test, you have to have interval or ratio based question. With interval and ratio based question, you can check it. So just a minute, let me open one file. Excel file. So suppose I want to check that the average income of this particular group, it is 50,000. And for that, I am randomly selecting 10, or conveniently I am selecting the 10 respondent and I'm asking their per month income. And they are saying per month income. Somebody is saying 10,000, somebody is written 1 lakh, somebody is saying 45,000. Yeah, so I am entering 10 random values, 5,000, somebody is saying, then maybe 20,000, 2,000, 20, oh, 2 lakh likh diya. Then 27,000, 35,000, 10 ho jaye to it's, I have to stop, 40,000. So what is my assumption that the income of this particular group, it is 50,000 per month, and for that I have collected the information कि आपका income बताइए per month कितना है, and then they have responded. Oh, the average income that which I have calculated, it is coming to 31,800. So I am able to reject the hypothesis. So what was my hypothesis? My assumed value. 50,000 kahan se aaya tha? That was the assumed value. So my assumed value was 50,000. When I have collected the information from the participant, I am getting the per month income average that I am getting 31,000. So my hypothesis that the FDP group के जो participant है, that group having average income equal to 50,000, that I am rejecting. So if you want to perform a one sample t-test, you have to have one assumed value. So यहाँ पर मैंने बताया था 50,000 per month. Now this 50,000 per month comes from where? It is just the assumed number, but you can get it from literature also. You can get it from observation also. Say for example, अगर आपको ऐसा देखना है कि service quality of Bank of Baroda, it is around 5. Clear? So then you can observe this data actually from the Bank of Baroda branch. You can visit each branch. They are recording their how many complaints they are able to resolve in a day, and on that basis they are writing the service quality index of a particular week. So what is that? You have to visit that branch, and then through observation you can get that yes, this is the assumed value of service quality of Bank of Baroda customer. So through observation you can ask them. Clear? And through observation also you can check that कि वो 5 जो बताया था वो आया कहाँ. That is from observation. One thing from the literature also you can get it. Like BMI, हम सबको पता है कि there is a calculator. Clear? So if I want to know my BMI, body mass index, then I can write something. What is the height, मेरा weight कितना है, and then that is calculated. So on the basis of this particular data which is there in the literature, I can assume the BMI level of any person, and then I can compare. So those who are going gym regularly gym that time, first thing they are checking it is their BMI, and then they are suggesting आपको ये खाना चाहिए पता नहीं क्या क्या बता रहता है. Clear? So उनको कहाँ से पता चलता है कि what is the standard BMI level? It is from the literature. So from literature also you can get the assumed value. You can do it through the observation, and if you both the things are missing, then you can assume any number, any random number. Like I have assumed 50,000. Second thing, independent sample details. If you want to perform the independent sample details of data collected, then the data measurement scale requirement क्या होना चाहिए data? So the first question आपके पास हो सकता है, it should be categorical with 2 categories. So first question मैंने यहाँ पे gender लिखा है. So male, female, that I have written, and then rate your satisfaction on 1 to 5 Likert scale for this particular FDP. मेरे class के लिए आप लिखो. So then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 it is a satisfaction that I had asked on 1 to 5. So the second question that I am having, it is the feedback or satisfaction. It is measured on 1 5 Likert scale. So one question, if you want to perform independent sample t-test out of that, then एक question आपके पास categorical होना चाहिए with at least with 2 category only. So yes, मेरा data measurement scale, is it categorical? Yes, it is categorical. First question. Second question, it must be scale question. So scale question मेरे पास है, yes, satisfaction I have measured on a scale. It is a Likert scale. So by combining these 2 questions, you will be able to run independent sample t-test. Now, if you have more than 2 categories, like male, female, only 2 categories are there, then you can check the independent sample t-test. So अब book में ऐसा लिखा होता है कि if you want to check the mean differences between the 2 groups, you can go for independent sample t-test. And they are writing 2 groups, that means female is 1 group and male it is 2 groups. So book में जब भी हम statistics की book में पढ़ते हैं तो ऐसा लिखा होता है, if you want to check the mean differences between the 2 groups, then you can go for an independent sample t-test. So वो जो group की बात कर रहे हैं, this is nothing but that is a categorical question they are talking. If you have a more than 2 categories, like male, female से ज़्यादा एक और है, may I can add that one category, like transgender. So then this is not independent sample t-test. Instead of independent sample t-test, now you can run ANOVA out of that. So if you want to perform analysis of variance, then what is the data measurement scale required for that question or that particular technique? If your first question must be categorical with more than 2 categories, and the second question must be the scale question. So check करते हैं यहाँ पे. Yes, the first question it is gender, and I have 3 categories, more than 2. And the second question I have satisfaction, it is a Likert scale. So by combining these 2, you will be able to do analysis of variance. Now the third test, statistical t-test we have, it is the related sample t-test or paired comparison. When you are studying the things in a pair, it is called the related data. Your data, it is from beginning they are having correlation. That is called the related data. So before Diwali, if you are conducting any surprise quiz for the student, what is the score or mark or grade? Sir, before Diwali, kya situation hai? And after Diwali, if you are conducting again the surprise quiz, and if you are comparing the grade got by the two students or that same group of students, then you can say that yes, these two students or that pair of student, it is related. The score of the marks achieved before Diwali and after Diwali, they are related in nature because student wahi hai. So when you are studying the sample twice, एक का example, when you're studying the sample twice with the short period, it is known as a related t-test. When your period it is more than 1 year, then that is not the related sample t-test. When suppose if I'm studying the MG Narega scheme, Manrega pada main dekh rahi hu. So what is the status of Manrega scheme in year 2015? What is the status in year 20 and 22? So even though I'm studying the same sample, but the year or the duration, it is more than 1 year. I am not talking about the related sample t-test. In that case, I am talking about the panel data. Yeah. So that is a time series analysis is another thing which you can study. So if the period of study, it is less than 1 year, and if you're studying the sample twice, it is the related sample t-test you can perform out of that. Okay. So I have talked about one sample t-test, independent sample t-test, ANOVA, and the pair comparison. Now next we will do chi-square. When both the questions are categorical in nature, जब आप टिक करते हो both or more, huh? You can do even layer while chi-square cross step can be calculated. So when set of the question that you are having, it is category. When I'm saying a category, that means आप टिक करने वाले question कर रहे हो. So that time you can perform the chi-square. So last time we have taken the example. Question. Somebody is asking anything? आवाज नहीं आ रहा है clear. Can you repeat?
No, I think somebody had unmuted. I just muted the participant.
So when you have both the set of the question or the related questions which you are studying, it is categorical in nature, you can go for a chi-square test. So this is a symbol of chi-square. So age and income. Yeah. The type of the phone and the income that you are generating. If both are in categorical in nature, when you are taking your category, it is a chi-square. The same question can be studied with the scale question. And if you are having both the scale question or many scale questions, then it can be correlation. So I think last time I have given this example. I don't know. Check. हाँ, मैंने लास्ट टाइम फोन का दिया था, आईफोन वाला एग्जांपल दिया था. So here I have two sets of question. One it is age and another it is income. The way in which I had asked this question, that format, that measurement scale is the only difference. Yeah. So if your measurement scale it is changing, but obviously the statistical test that you are going to do out of that will change. So here both the questions are similar. If you see the variables are age and income. But if you have this set of the question which is recorded or measurement scale used scale, so here I will be able to do correlation R. I will be able to do correlation. Here both the questions are categorical. I am taking my category. I am not giving the answer. Clear? So if both are categorical, I will be able to do chi-square out of that. So age and income, if it is categorical data, you can perform chi-square. If both the data you have collected on a scale data, then you will be able to do correlation. And the last one we have, it is regression. Then I'll take you to the SPSS. Regression. Regression, there could be two types of regression. One, it is simple regression, and another, it is a multiple regression. Simple regression, in the simple regression, this is the regression line, y is equal to a plus bx. So this thing you are trying to predict. This variable is unknown, this is known variable. Okay. So dependent variable and independent variable, they both are 1 and 1. So then in that case, you are talking about the simple regression. So in simple regression, you have two variable, one it is dependent, one it is independent. In multiple regression, you have one unknown variable and many known variables. Like performance of the student in the university exam, it is a function, it is dependent on, हम फैकल्टी खाली अटेंडेंस देखते हैं, अटेंडेंस क्लास में अच्छा आता है रेगुलरली, देन दैट पर्सन इज क्लेवर, दैट इज क्यूरियस, ऐसा हमें लग रहा है. बट व्हेन परसेंटेज इज कमिंग रेगुलरली, इज नॉट शोइंग दैट ग्रेड, वो उसकी पंक्चुअलिटी दिखाते हैं. तो द वेरिएबल व्हिच यू हैव सेड दैट इटसेल्फ इज रॉन्ग. सो इफ यू वांट टू चेक द रिलेशनशिप between the attendance and the performance of a student, then using this two variable, you can say that this is a simple regression. But when you want to predict the grade of a student, like performance of a student or grade of the student in the university exam, if that estimate you want to do, and if it is on the basis of the attendance, on the basis of IQ, how many hours that student is reading the books, or how many hours that person is in the library, kitni books, textbook, reference book padhta hai. If this all variables are included, if you are trying to predict the performance of a student or a grade of a student in the university exam, this is called multiple regression. So I have many independent variable here. So when using this independent variable, you are trying to predict the variable which is unknown, it is performance. So when you have only two variable, one dependent, one dependent and one independent, it is a simple regression. When you have sets of the independent variable, you are talking the multiple regression. Okay. एक मिनट दो, मुझे SPSS खोलना है. Fine, okay. Now, this is the file I had opened. Now, before making any calculations or making any analysis out of that, first thing you have to check the normality, whether the data it is having normal distribution or not. If the data is normally distributed, then you can go for a parametric statistical technique. If data is non-normal, abnormal nahi hota hai, non-normal. If it is non-normal, then you can go for a non-parametric technique. Now, the one thing I want to make it clear that the first generation of a researchers, they have created that kind of a perception that if you are doing a non-parametric statistical technique, your thesis, your research paper, it is considered inferior. And if you are doing parametric statistical technique, then it is considered the best. No, it's not like that. Both when you are doing the hypothesis testing, whether it is a parametric or non-parametric, आपको आंसर क्या आता है? Suppose आपके पास है parametric and you have non-parametric. Answer आपको क्या मिलता है? In both the situation, I am getting the answer whether my hypothesis is rejected or it fails to reject. So even parametric is giving the answer whether my hypothesis is rejected or not rejected. Non-parametric is also giving the same answer. ऐसा नहीं है कि पैरामेट्रिक बहुत अच्छी तरह से कॉन्फिडेंस से बता रहा है कि yes your hypothesis रिजेक्टेड बाय 100% and non-parametric poorly बता रहा है कि your hypothesis rejected by 20%. That quantitative measurement it is not there. Clear? So both the statistical technique it is considered equal. Don't create that kind of perception that if I'm using this kind of a statistical technique, my hypothesis or my paper will be rejected straight away. No, it's not like that. whatever the analysis you are doing or a conclusion you are drawing, it is on that conclusion or that decision, it is just rejecting or accepting. The yeah, कितने percentage से मैं उसको reject कर रहा हूँ, that no hypothesis is giving that answer. So both the statistical technique, it is equally important, whether it is a parametric or non-parametric. So the first thing you have to check when you have the data with you, check the normality of data. Without checking the assumption, if you are doing the analysis, then that analysis is misleading. This is a common example every time in my FDP I am giving, like suppose कहीं गए, मैं मैडम का नाम लेती हूँ, जयश्री मैडम, कहाँ से, आई डोंट नो, मे बी फ्रॉम मुंबई. सो अगर वो मैं वहां जा रही हूँ मुंबई और बता रहे कि मैडम ये सब मुंबई से हो मैम,
या मैम,
हाँ. सो अगर मुझे वहाँ कॉन्फ्रेंस में मिल रहे हैं, शी इज इनवाइटिंग मी कि मैडम आ जाइए हमारे कॉलेज में, जाते हैं, एंड देन मैडम बता रहे हैं कि मैडम चलो आज आपका फ्लाइट तो रात को 12:30 को है, हम डिनर साथ में करते हैं, मैं अच्छा कुक हूँ, मैं खाना अच्छा बनाती हूँ, आ जाइए. सो ओके, शी इज इंसिस्टिंग, और मैं चली जाती हूँ उनके घर पे. सो शी हैज अरेंज ड्राइवर, एक गाड़ी रखा है मेरे लिए. मैं घर पे जाती हूँ, ड्राइवर को बोलते हैं कि मुंबई में थोड़ा मैडम को घुमा लाओ, तो जहाँ भी फाउंड ऑफ गुजराती बहुत शॉपिंग करते हैं, तो शॉपिंग वॉपिंग करवा दिया ड्राइवर ने. फिर मैं इवनिंग में जाती हूँ उनके घर पे करीबन 7:30. लाइट इज ऑन, लाइट म्यूजिक इज गोइंग ऑन, एंड कुकर का विसल भी मुझे सुनाई दे रहा है बाहर. सो three things, that light music is going on, light is on, and कुकर बज रहा है, मतलब गैस पर कुछ काम हो रहा है. With this I have concluded that someone is there. मैं बेल मारे जा रही हूँ, मैडम दरवाजा नहीं खोल रहे हैं, मैं फिर से डोरबेल बजा रही हूँ, नहीं खोल रहे हैं, आधा घंटा हो गया, अब मुझे गुस्सा आ रहा है. एंड फिर मैंने ड्राइवर को बोला कि ठीक है चलो खाना नहीं खाना है, मैं मुझे एयरपोर्ट छोड़ दो. फिर जब मैं एयरपोर्ट पे बैठी हूँ 12-12:30 बजे, मैडम के इतने फोन आ रहे हैं, मैसेज आ रहे हैं, नोटिफिकेशन में मैसेज देख के मैं पढ़ती भी नहीं हूँ, एंड देन आई एम डिस्कनेक्टिंग द कॉल. खाना पे बुला के अब मुझे दरवाजा नहीं खोल रहा, ऐसा कर रहे हो मैडम. फिर मैं थोड़े दिन के बाद मैडम का थीसिस आता है मेरे पास इवेल्यूट करने के लिए, एंड देन मैडम इज सेइंग कि अच्छा काम हो रहा है. विदाउट लुकिंग इनटू थीसिस मैं बहुत ऐसा कमेंट लिख देती हूँ, एंड देन आई एम गिविंग रीवर्क, स्ट्रेट अवे आई एम रिजेक्टिंग द थीसिस. क्यों? क्योंकि गुस्सा मुझे वो बात का है कि खाना खाने बुलाया और दरवाजा खोला नहीं है. 6-8 महीने के बाद मैडम मुझे कोई कॉन्फ्रेंस में मिल रही, शी इज ट्राइंग टू टॉक टू मी, मैंने ही इग्नोर कर रही हूँ, बट कैसे ही मैडम आ गई कि मैडम आप क्यों ऐसा कर रहे हो, उस दिन आप खाने पे भी नहीं आए, हमने कितना राह देखा, मी एंड माय हस्बैंड किड ऑल वर वेटिंग ऑन दैट डे, एंड आप आए ही नहीं. फिर मुझे आया है गुस्सा, ऐसे भी बहुत गुस्सा आता है मुझे. तो मैं बोल रही उस दिन कितना मैंने बेल मजा, आपने दरवाजा नहीं खोल रहे हो और मुझे बोल रहे हो खाना खाने पे नहीं है, मैं खाना खाए बिना अहमदाबाद आई थी उस दिन. देन शी इज टेलिंग कि मैडम वी हैव न्यूली शिफ्टेड टू दैट होम एंड डोरबेल तो लगाया ही नहीं. So what assumption I had made that she is having doorbell, and the second assumption is I had made it is that doorbell is working. With these two assumption, I have concluded that madam has insulted me. She has called me for dinner and then aisa kiya. And with that, what is the final thing? एक अच्छे स्टूडेंट का थीसिस रिजेक्ट कर दिया है. क्लियर? सो व्हाट इज दैट इंटरप्रिटेशन, क्या किया कि यार स्टूडेंट का अच्छा नहीं है, मैडम ने कुछ गलती की है पर स्टूडेंट को थीसिस रिजेक्ट किया है. So the thing I have to check it is doorbell laga hai ki nahi laga, and the second thing I have to check out if it is there, is it working? Without checking these two assumption, I have concluded that ki nahi madam nahi hai. So the same thing we are doing when we are doing the data analysis. Without checking assumption, we are directly jumping to the conclusion. That is the wrong thing. First thing you have to check the assumption of a data. And for the assumption checking, the first assumption that we have to do it is checking the normality. मैम मैं आऊंगी मुंबई आपके घर पे.
हाँ श्योर मैम.
चलिए, so the joke apart, before making use of this analyze function, try to check the assumptions. How to check the assumptions of data? मुझे भी चेक करना है, कैसे चेक करते हैं, एक मिनट. फ्रीक्वेंसीज, okay, you can go to analyze, then it is under the descriptive statistics. So under the analyze, descriptive statistics is there. Under the descriptive statistics we have two options, PP plots and QQ plots. PP is a probability to probability, QQ is quartile to quartile. So any one of them you can check whether your data is following the normal distribution or not. For that, you can check any one of that two charts. So I'm using the first one. So any scale data, आपके पास scale data का ही assumption आप normality check कर सकते हो. I have seen that people, they are even checking the normality for categorical data like gender. Gender normal कैसे हो सकता है? नहीं कर सकते. So only for a scale distribution you have to check the normality. So I have one scale distribution, that is the percentage of body fat. आपके body में कितना fat का percentage है, that I want to check. And I am checking the normality. Okay. Output is this generated. I hope this output screen is visible. आप देख सकते हो एक normal PP plot का chart. It is there on my screen.
Yeah, ma'am. It is visible.
So it is like this. ये data इस तरह से बना है. आपके पास एक diagonal line जा रहा है and all your data cases, मतलब all your respondents ऐसे उसके ऊपर fall हो रहे हैं. So अगर ऐसा कुछ है तो this particular person, it is deviating from your line. Yes, this is called deviating. This could be outlier. So ऐसे कर करके बहुत सारे data आए हैं. So a line वो है. This is that line. So if you see this black line के पीछे एक straight line दिख रहा है. If you observe this keenly, you will find that here there is one straight line. So if most of your observations, they are falling on the straight line, then you can say that your data, it is normally distributed. Your data, it is normally distributed. So this is the one way of checking whether your data, it is normally distributed. Once your data is normally distributed, then only you can test the remaining parametric tests like T, ANOVA, regression, correlation can be done after checking the normality of the data. So this is one way of checking. The another thing you can check, you can go to, I don't want to save, so no. The another way of checking, you can go to analyze, you can go to descriptive statistics, you can click on frequency, you can click percentage of body fat. For that, I want to check the normal distribution. Click on statistics. You can take mean, median, mode. मुझे चाहिए kurtosis and वो चाहिए मुझे. So I think it is here. And standard error of mean. You can take everything if you wish. कर सकते हो. Continue. Okay. So if you see here, the standard error of skewness and kurtosis and skewness, this four data is visible here. I am reading from here. अब देखो first table में it is skewness and the kurtosis. So if you divide this data, आपको अपने आप से generate नहीं करना है, वो computer generate कर लेगा. आपको खाली calculation इस तरह से करना है. If you divide this skewness by its standard error, and if similarly for kurtosis also, divide the data by standard error of the kurtosis. And if this data, it is falling between 0.95 to positive 0.95, then you can consider it is the normally distributed data. Okay, so that you have to calculate. I am not calculating, but the thumb rule I have told you. So skewness के नीचे देखो standard error है, kurtosis के नीचे standard error of kurtosis है. If by dividing these two things, if you are getting the range between 0.95 plus minus that range, if you are getting, then you can consider that this particular data, it is normally distributed. And the third thing, so for checking the normality of a distribution or normality of a data, that there are three things you can use. The first one, you can use graphical representation, the one I have done like PP plot you can prepare. Another thing, you can make the calculation using the formula. And मैंने वो range भी बताया आपको. Plus minus, clear. So first thing, you can use chart. Second, you can use the formula. And another thing, you can use the statistical technique. And that statistical technique, popularly known, it is case test. So that option I am showing, it is under the non-parametric. Go to analyze non-parametric techniques. Under the non-parametric techniques, there is a legacy dialog. And under the legacy dialog, you have one sample AS test. So you select the variable which you want to test. And this significant value 0.20, you have to compare with 0.05. And the decision, it is reverse. Why? Because here we are checking on my hypothesis, it is what? It is positively worded. So these are the three ways in which you can check the hypothesis normality of a distribution. If you want to check the randomness of a data, then that is also here under this guy. Normality, legacy dialog, and then you have run test. So the run test, it is used for checking the randomness of a data. So this is the path for checking the normality. This is the path for checking the randomness. Using this two, you can check the data assumption. And that's why these two are positively worded. Okay. Now the next file I want is student file. Okay, so this is a data collected maybe by some professor, because this data, it is related with the student. So if you see this here, lot of data is collected, like the gender, height of a student, then how many days they are working in a week, what is the distance, what is the current GPA, how many hours that students they are reading in the library. Now I want to compare that. There is no significant difference when I'm comparing gender and height. So height of a student and gender, they are not significantly related. That I want to check. So there is no significant difference between the height when I'm comparing male and female. So first condition, I have to check whether I have two questions. Yes, I have two questions. The first question is gender. The second question is height. The another condition I have to check, gender, it is a nominal question. Yes, nominal hai. Height wala jo question, it is a scale question. Yes, it is a scale question. So I can perform the independent sample t-test like this. Go to analyze. Go to analyze, compare mean. Go to analyze, compare mean. Select independent sample t-test. After selecting that, what is my test variable? Mera research wala variable kya hai? So my research variable, it is the height of a student. So height maine test variable mein dala hai. What is my grouping variable? My grouping, it is based on gender. So now it is again confirmed कि gender को मैंने किस तरह से define किया. It is defined as F and M. So I have to redefine here. My group 1, it is F. My group 2, it is M. Continue. Okay. Okay, some responses I am getting, और so result मुझे दिख रहा है. I hope क्या result आपको भी दिख रहा है. Okay. So now, the first thing हम लोग क्या कर रहे हैं hypothesis testing में? The first hypothesis that we are doing, it is the height of a male student is equal to height of a female student. That is the hypothesis. There is no significant difference as far as height is concerned. So this is my hypothesis. Clear? Male and female ka height equally hai. Now this is my hypothesis. If I want to check that ko kya compare karna hai? So then I am checking the significant value. So both the significant value here, it is 0.000. So this 0.000, I have to compare with level of significance. And by default, the SPSS level of significance, it is 0.05. So I am comparing it with 0.05. These two values, my significant value, I am comparing with my statistical significant value mil raha hai, I am comparing with the 0.05 and I am taking a decision. Now, anything it is less than, agar aapko kam salary mil raha hai, to will you work? हम काम करते हैं, but then we are trying to reject that कि नहीं मुझे नहीं चाहिए. I am eligible, I am competent more than this salary. So when someone is providing something lesser than that, we always try to object, will reject. So 0.000, it is less than 0.05. This is a thumb rule. Clear? If anything it is less, then I will reject. So my 0.00, it is less than 0.05. I have to reject. What I am rejecting? I am rejecting the null hypothesis. And my null hypothesis क्या बता रहा है? Male and female का height, it is equal. That my null hypothesis it is suggesting, but I am rejecting. If I am rejecting, then hypothesis reject कहाँ हो रहा है? I have to write the conclusions. So then in that case, I have to check the descriptive statistics. And descriptive statistics क्या बता रहा है? Female का height it is 65 in inches and male का height it is 70. So there is a difference. Male height it is 70 in inches and female it is 65. So differences are there. Yes, difference are there. I am rejecting the hypothesis. So difference kahan se aa raha hai? Difference it is coming here. If you can see the descriptive statistics mean value, एक का आ रहा है 65.0316 and second male का आ रहा है 70.4472. So differences are there and that's why my test set is rejecting this hypothesis. Okay. One more. From the same file, I'm taking something. Now, this file variable. Now, I'm trying to check that student को वो compare करना है. Okay. Now, I have one variable. It is current GPA. So that is a grade point. So current GPA grade point average. So that it is recorded. So वो मेरा scale question है. And now I'm trying to compare with how many hours the students they are reading. So one more question I have at the last. Students category, how many hours? So this is the work category. So this is the work category. Last question. How many hours students are reading? So it is defined 0 hours, 1 to 19 hours, and many hours. Clear? 1 to 19, it is a second category. So the question that was asked to the student, it is 0 hour, 1 to 19 hours, and 20 to 99 hours. So one question, it is a scale question. Hai scale question? हाँ है. Second question, it is categorical. I want to compare ऐसा करना है कि there is no significant difference as far as GPA is concerned when I'm comparing that with the different hours of the student reading. So this I want to compare, and for comparison, now I have more than 2 categories, 1, 2, and 3 categories. So when more than 2 categories are there, मुझे अनोवा करना पड़ेगा. So अनोवा करने के लिए मेरे पास कंडीशन क्या है? The condition for performing the analysis of variance is I have to have one categorical question. Yes, categorical question है, मैं टिक करने वाली हूँ. And it is more than 2 categories. Yes, 3 categories are there. My second question must be scale question. So this is a scale question. मैंने open-ended question पूछा है. So my question 2 it is this one. And my question 1 it is this. For performing the analysis of variance, 2 questions are there. Yes, hai. Question more than 2 categories? हाँ है. The second question, it is a scale question. Yeah, it is a scale question. So to perform the analysis of variance, these 2 conditions are satisfied. So now, before performing the analysis of variance, I have to check the measurement scale. So measurement scale proper has, then I can go for analysis of variance. I am going for analysis of variance. So now, directly with there is a style that if you want to check graphically also you can check that. So हमारा hypothesis यहाँ पर क्या है? My hypothesis is that average mark, that is mu, from first category जो 0 hours पढ़ रहे हैं, that marks of a first category of student it is equal to the marks of second category, it is equal to the third category. So ये तीनों जो category के student है, they all are getting the equal marks. That was my hypothesis. Now I'm trying to test that. अगर टेस्ट करना है तो क्या है? So I can use another function also every time without statistical analysis also graphical से भी मैं बहुत कुछ कर सकती हूँ. Rather than always going for inferential, I can prepare a chart also. So I'm using one more function of SPSS and that is chart builder. Okay. I am using box and plot chart. So you can select. So which variable you are putting? X-axis पे क्या आता है? Independent variable, it is measured on x-axis. What is independent? Grade, it is dependent. Yeah. And my independent variable is last one. Click it on that. So this kind of a representation also you can see that. So dekho, if you check the bold black color line, that is called median line. So median line, it is different for all the three category. Yahan par iska median line aa raha hai, ye yahan is just not equal. So this graph itself is showing that differences are there. अलग अलग टार्स पढ़ने पर ग्रेड जो आ रहा है that is always different. So this graphical represent is also showing that the different hours, if you are reading, you are getting the different grade. It is not equal. This 161 dot जो दिख रहा है, it is nothing but the outlier. Outlier मतलब respondent number 161, he has created a problem. You are not getting the normal distribution because of this. So this is one way of checking the differences among the category. Another way of checking the differences, you can always go for statistical treatment. So analyze, compare mean, and then you can go for a one-way ANOVA. In one-way ANOVA, my factors are based on the work category. And my grade, it is dependent. Current grade, it is dependent variable. Okay. So you are getting the significant value, it is 0.00. So 0.00, it is less than 0.05. Yes, reject the hypothesis. Mera hypothesis kya hai? mu1, mu2, mu3, they all are equal. That hypothesis I am rejecting. If they are not equal, kahan difference kahan hai? And if you want to check the differences, then you have to check the descriptive statistics for that. And the descriptive statistics, it is go to analyze, compare mean. The first option, it is mean. My dependent variable, it is what is that? GPA. And my independent list, it is last the work category. Okay. नहीं मैंने कैसे लिखा? Just a minute. Let me perform one more time. Go to analyze, descriptive statistics, compare mean, independent list of category. Okay, now if you see the mean distribution here, for student, those who are reading 0 hours, their average mark, it is 2.88. Those who are studying 1 to 19 hours, their average, it is 3.16. And those who are studying more than 20 hours, uska average 0.31. So if you see the grade here, it is having difference. And that's why my hypothesis is getting rejected. We'll perform one more statistical treatment and then I'll go for question answer. You want to proceed? Yes. फोन और ऐसा कुछ दिख रहा है F फोन एंड मोबाइल एंड फोन इनकम एंड फोन है चलो okay so in this file I have only 2 questions and if you see the question both are nominal one it is income मैंने किस तरह से पूछा है there are 3 categories of income less than 5 lakh 5 lakh to 10 lakh and more than 10 lakh the 3 categories 1 to 3 categories I have prepared and what about the font budget type budget mid segment and flagship these are the 3 categories now I want to check that income and the type of font that you are using are they associated with each other and for that I am running the chi-square why I am running the chi-square test because both the questions it is categorical in nature and that's why I am going for chi-square go to analyze go to descriptive statistics under descriptive statistics you have cross tabs select click on exact no it's not statistics in statistics you select chi-square now if both the questions are ordinal in nature that means the order of the variable they are increasing like age and income both are ordinal in nature if that time you go for the SOMAS D that is a statistical technique you can use If both are nominal question like gender and are you aware about that, something yes or no. If both the questions are nominal in nature, then you can go for pi or a Camus B. I am using chi-square here. Continue. You have to take the expected count also. Tick here. Continue. Okay. The result of the chi-square can be concluded the same way which have done for other statistical technique, like you have to compare this. There is a relation, what is the type of a phone and the budget income. There is no association between the two, but there is the association. Hypothesis getting rejected. But one thing you have to check, I have seen many theses, many research paper, published research paper. Can you see this 0% have expected count less than 5? If here you have any percentage, then that is the assumption of a chi-square that you have not tested. This is the assumption. If other than any values written here 0.00 के सिवाय कोई भी value लिखा है, that means you cannot interpret the result of the chi-square. What does it mean? If you can check the expected count of all the boxes, it is more than 5. See 9, 10.8, 10.2, 12. Clear? So if any of the boxes having the value less than 5, you cannot interpret the result of the chi-square. This is the assumption of chi-square. But there are theses, there are publications. I have seen that without this checking the assumption of a chi-square, they are reporting the things as it is. यही टेबल उठा के प्रिंट कर दिया होता है. Don't do that. Except 0, यहाँ पर कोई भी नंबर आ रहा है, that means you cannot interpret the result of the chi-square analysis. Okay. Okay, when the last test I'll do. Swimmer. So this is a statistical data. Maybe the different swimming coach, they might have collected this data. So if you can see the file, different styles of swimmings are there. That 100 style free and the backstroke and then the freestyle. So these are the type of the swimming. Now, this data it is collected twice. What is the performance of a participant before having the guidance from the mentor or coach, and what is the performance after having the guidance from the coach? So then this data it is collected twice. This is before and after, and that's why everywhere you will find the two pair of a distribution. So this is what? This is related data. You have collected data twice, before and after. So this is the related pair sample comparison. Go to analyze, compare mean. And the third option, pair sample test. I am selecting any two style randomly. Click here. Okay. But before that, I have to check the hypothesis for this. What is the hypothesis for related sample? There is no change. There is no difference. No change, no difference. So hypothesis, this is the hypothesis for this particular test. Now we are checking. So this is the data related to swimming. And if you see the data, first of all, significant value here, you can say that it is 0.000. So compare this 0.00, it is less than 0.05. Yes, it is less than. So reject the hypothesis, reject as 0. I am rejecting that there is no difference. That means when I'm rejecting there is no difference, there must be difference. And if there is a difference, difference lies where? So difference, it is there in the descriptive statistics. So person, dekho, before getting the guidance from the coach, he is to complete one length in 76 seconds, and coach sir ने जो guide दिया उसके बाद the same person is able to complete one length of a swimming with 70 seconds. So there is lot of improvement. in competition, even 1 second matters a lot. And this person is able to improve by 6 seconds. So yes, there is a difference. There is a change after having the guidance from the coach. So when you have a related data, that time you can go for a related sample t-test. So almost all the statistical techniques I have explained, and still we have 5 minutes. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Anyone?
Yeah, participants, anybody has doubts, please, you can unmute yourself and ask ma'am directly. That was really an in-depth information on inferential data, ma'am.
Chat box में देखे कुछ है? Now everyone is waiting for feedback link.
Chat box में मैम अगर कुछ नहीं questions नहीं है तो भी I think it could be because of the reason, you know, during Dr. Sai Madhavi's session, she had asked a question that how many are the beginners of this research. So there are, I think, more than half are in the beginning stage. Okay. So I feel that as they dive deep into it, they will come across all this, you know, whatever you explained, because these are the intricacies, and that time they will have a lot of queries will be explained through your, I think, recorded lecture.
Fine.
But,
so I'm writing my email ID. If someone is any doubt and if they don't want to ask, they can mail me.
And ma'am, I had one just question about the beginning, what you said about the null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis, the shift. So is there any particular reason that this shift has happened for now from researchers statement?
This is a new trend of reporting. So this is the style, the reporting style, it is changed. अगर आप देखो कि जब हम स्कूल में पढ़ रहे थे तो हमें ऐसा सिखाते थे कि when you are drafting a letter thanking you and ये left alignment होता है. Now if you are saying that alignment is changed, but matter remains the same. So that is a new format of reporting. It is introduced in the research field. Nothing else than that. Okay. So then earlier the things which you are rejecting, why to report that? We have to report our claim. So जिसके लिए हम research कर रहे हैं, that is researcher claim. So now people are saying that I will report my research claim.
Okay. Anybody has queries? I don't see anything in the chat box. You can unmute yourself and you can ask ma'am directly.
No doubt.
No, because as I said, because you know, just day before yesterday we saw that most of them are in the beginning stage. So this will be very valuable.
Ma'am, one doubt I have. Ma'am, in review paper, is it possible to take data collection likewise, like calculations and
review paper? That means you want to say that it is an article based paper. That's what you want to ask?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So review paper, it is based on the subjective, it is qualitative data, so hypothesis won't be tested. For primary data collection or for empirical research, you can go for hypothesis.
But ma'am, many of the paper I saw, like literature review paper, they are keeping like this.
So if it is a finance data related, wherein you are not collecting the data, but you are using the secondary data, and using that secondary data also you can have hypothesis. But review papers are purely like articles.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ma'am has given her email also, in case you want to connect to her later on. But ma'am, that was indeed, I mean, there's such an in-depth information about this inferential data. Thank you very much for coming here. And I want to know if, Preeti ma'am, are you there?
So thank you so much, Grand Academic Portal, Preeti Madam and Jappi sir and Jayashree Ma'am for giving this.
Ma'am, I think there is somebody is asking in the chat.
In article we references. Yes, we have to put references.
Okay. Anybody else, please put in the chat box or ask directly.
If you are not putting the references in the article, then chances of that you will find whole article is a plagiarized article. So you have to acknowledge the person from where you have taken that data. So references, whether it is a primary data, secondary data, article, review-based paper, empirical paper, you have to write references. Without citation, you cannot write any paper.
Yeah, I don't see any more questions.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
ma'am. Shall I draw from the waiting?
I don't see. Yeah, I think, ma'am, Preeti ma'am might be busy right now. So thank you so much, ma'am, for coming here and giving such a wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Have a nice day.
Yeah, same to you, ma'am. And all the participants, I think the next session, the resource person is going to be around 10 minutes late. So either you can be here or you can join again. And Brushali Matre will be the moderator for that session. Brushali, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Brushali. So have you checked with the resource person?
Not yet. Preeti ma'am said that the resource person will join. I'm just waiting.
Yeah, so participants, please wait for maybe I think little more, 5 to 10 minutes.
Because I don't see that sir has joined yet.
Yeah, I got a message from Preeti ma'am that Dr. Gujarati sir, I think he should be
Yeah.
here by 5:40.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
I just request participants to stay for a while. Don't log out. Sir will be here any moment.
Next speaker is joining in as soon as possible. Vrushali ma'am, please wait. Next speaker is joining in. Please wait. Some technical issue in joining.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Yes, yes. Rushali, our speaker is joined in. We can start.
Okay, ma'am.
Dr. Ritesh Gujarati sir has joined in. We can start.
Yes, ma'am. Everybody, please put it on mute. I think so. Somebody has put on the speaker. Yeah. So, good evening, everyone. Sir, first of all, I would like to welcome you for this session because this is our last session, and we all are really excited to know the, you know, to know more about today's topic, that is ethics in research. Firstly, I would like to take an honor to introduce our today's resource person, that is Dr. Ritesh Gujarati. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you, ma'am.
yeah. So I would like to, tell more about Sir. Dr. Ritesh Gujarati is currently working as an associate professor with the Department of Basic Principles at CVM's GJ Patel Institute of Ayurvedic Studies and Research, which is located at VV Nagar, Anand, Gujarat. He has completed his BAMS from North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon, Maharashtra. Sir has also completed his MD in Ayurveda from the National Institute, and also IPGT and RA, that is Institute of Postgraduate and Teaching and Research in Ayurveda, again from Gujarat Ayurveda University, Jamnagar, Gujarat. Sir has completed his PhD in Ayurveda from Tilak Maharashtra Vidyapit, Pune. Sir has total teaching experience of 15 years, and at his credit, he has 4 books and 26 research papers. His area of specialization is fundamental principles of Ayurveda. He has delivered 80 talks at various institutes. He has been the resource person for various online, offline faculty development programs, faculty induction programs, reorientation programs, seminars, and webinars. Sir is also a member of NABA Assessors. Sir, I welcome you, and we all are really excited for the today's session.
Thank
And
you. Thank you, madam.
yeah, you
Hope
can
I'm
begin.
audible, ma'am.
Yes, sir, you are.
The slides are visible, na?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much for a brief introduction. A very good evening to all who are present here. First, uh, let me say that I'm actually late for 5 to 10 minutes, so extremely sorry for that, but couldn't join by 5:30. So as madam has said rightly that today's session is the last session of this FDP. And in the last maybe 1 week or around, you might have gone through various say important topics related to research. And the last topic that we will be dealing today is ethics in research. As you can see on the screen, there's a balance which is there. So I have purposely put this balance here because when we talk about ethics in research, it is very much important because on the one side of this balance, there is science or research team, and another side of this balance, there are participants, there are ethics, there are code of conduct. And as a researcher, our most important role is to find a balance between this. So because in the history, there are episodes, or you can say research tragedies which have happened. Particularly, I'm talking about medical history, where more importance was given to research or science, and most of the say participants' rights or their health was severely compromised. And sometimes we also come across with certain issues where ethics or code of conduct has been given more importance than the science. So as a researcher, our main role is to set a balance so that we can conduct a research, we can contribute to our science, we can contribute to the society, and simultaneously we will also take care of the ethical principles or codes of conducts which are related to the research. Now let me start my presentation. Just a minute. Yes, so this is the content of my presentation. So we'll be talking about what is ethics, then what is the definition of research ethics, why research ethics matters so much, and what is the procedure of getting ethical approval from various committees at our institute level or national or international level. Then what types of ethical issues are there that generally as a researcher or supervisor we face. In those ethical issues, few important topics are voluntary participation of our research participants or subjects, informed consent. As far as possible, we need to do the research by, say, we shouldn't conduct or we shouldn't consider or take the information which will collect that research data to the research participants. So it is always better to collect the data and keep the information related to all those participants as anonymous. And if anonymity is not possible, then there's last option, and that is confidentiality. It means as a research supervisor, as a research scholar, we know everything about our research participants, but that information should be kept confidential. And it is one of the foremost right of research participants that their identity should always be kept confidential and their privacy matters most. And while doing research, there's always a chance of harm at various levels. Maybe it will be a personal, physical harm we can provide, or we can lead to some psychological harm or legal harm. So we should know what kind of harms are there while conducting research for all the research participants. And as a we all are academicians, we all are associated with one or other kind of research as a research supervisor, or we ourselves are doing research. So the final destination of all research is always research communication. Whatever we have done, maybe ourselves are doing, or our research students from our department, they are doing the research. So we need to communicate that research. And while communicating that research, two things are very important. First is plagiarism, and second is research misconduct. So whenever we are doing research or whenever we are communicating our research, we should be 100% honest, so that the integrity of the science, integrity of the institute, and credibility of the institute should not be at stake. And at the end, we are going to see some failures in ethical principles that are done in the past, maybe 100, 200, or 300 years. And at the end, if some time is left, then we'll be doing some exercises depending upon on these principles. So let us start with this. We all know the word, this ethics word is originated from the word ethos, and ethos is basically a Greek word. And the first reference of this Greek word in the history shows that it has been utilized by Aristotle. And the purpose of using this word, or the main meaning of this word ethos, was character or personality of a person. And why it was used? So it was used to set a balance between our passion, and simultaneously there should be a caution. So the purpose of ethos or ethics was to set a balance. So this is a historical reference of ethics. And nowadays, whenever we talk about ethics or research ethics or ethical principles or various ethical committees, we always talk about moral principles. It means there's a set of standards. Maybe it has been decided by the institute. Maybe it has been decided by a research granting authority. And those ethical principles are binding to all the research scholars. Also, it means a code of conduct. So these are the set of rules. It is expected that all the research scholars should strictly follow this code of conduct. And if you do not follow this, then ultimately whatever research, whatever financial resources, whatever time, whatever human resources we have spent for that research during those 2-3 years, there'll be a big question on the credibility. So that's why it is mandatory for a research scholar to follow this code of conduct. And yes, ethics helps us to discriminate between what is right and what is wrong. So every institute will have their own code of conduct, which will guide the research scholar, supervisor, as well as the scholar, that this is right and this is what we are supposed to follow. Now, talking about research ethics, these are the ethical considerations basically in research. These are the set of principles which generally start from the research design to its practices. So it starts from research question, that what kind of research question we are taking, then formulation of the hypothesis, then materials and methods, then what kind of sampling methods we are going to use, then the result analysis, and what kind of statistical softwares, and at the end, how we are going to communicate that research. So from the first step, that is identifying the research question, to the last step, that is research communication. So in all these steps, we need to give a thorough, say, analysis or importance for this code of conduct. And yes, as a scientist or researcher, we must always adhere to this code of conduct while collecting the data as well as throughout the research procedure. We all know that the goal of human research is always, specifically we are talking about medical research, it is about understanding the real life phenomena, what is going on in people's life, then studying effective treatment modalities. As a doctor, as a researcher, our main focus is to try to find out various treatment modalities for those diseases where the majority of the society is suffering from, and that's a burning issue in the society. So to find out the treatment solutions for that, even investigating the behaviors, why people are behaving like that. So mainly it will be a part of medical research or social science, where we'll be studying various behavioral patterns, and ultimate destination of our research will be improving the lives of everybody who is suffering from the disease, and ultimately to provide major solutions for the society or major health problems. Now, from where we should start thinking about ethics is what you decide to research. So it means the question or research question that itself comes under the radar of ethical committee, that how you have chosen this subject, why you have chosen this subject. So we need to give a solid justification for that. And if the committee agrees, then only we can take that topic as a research topic. And also, from though the committee has approved your topic, then the next question comes how you are going to conduct that research. So all those key ethical considerations are there. Now, why these considerations are important? Because they protect the right of research participants. Most important ethical considerations is to protect the rights, their privacy, their confidentiality while doing the research. When we are following all these guidelines, all these code of conduct, then certainly we are enhancing the validity of our research. Because whenever, by the end of the research, whenever we are sharing those papers or whenever we are sending those papers to a very standard journals, maybe PubMed, maybe Scopus journals, then they are going to verify the validity of research. And that time, these ethical considerations are very important. Also, to maintain the scientific integrity, that is very important, because whatever branch we belong to, whenever we are doing any research, then it should maintain the scientific integrity of that branch. So yes, ethical considerations are needed for these issues. Now again, why do these research ethics matter? So these are the issues. First and most important is scientific integrity, that we have seen. Then rights and dignity of those research participants, that is very important. We cannot treat our research participants or subjects as guinea pig, because in the past history we are going to see certain incidences where they have been treated like animals or guinea pigs. So that should not be there. And yes, collaboration between science and society, ethical consideration is very much important. Then whenever we are recruiting research participants, or say maybe animals, maybe human beings, then what is important is that all of those human beings have given their consent, and that is their participant are like on voluntary consent has been given. Even voluntary consent is not sufficient. That should be informed consent. It means we need to inform everything about our research, why we are doing that, how it has to be done, what is the timeline for that research, what are the benefits and losses to those research participants. So everything should be like crystal clear. And yes, while doing research, that research shouldn't cause any kind of harm to the research individual. So this is the part of ethical committee. They have to make sure that all these issues are properly addressed while approving those research proposals. And as most important, balance is required. What kind of balance? Balance between what are the risks and what are the benefits. So at the end of the research, more weightage should always be given to the benefits. We cannot have more risks and minimum benefits. So yes, that balance we have to set. And yes, all kinds of harms that we are going to see in the coming slides, that physical, psychological. So we should make sure that there should be any kind of harm. But when we are doing in interventional research, particularly I'm talking about medical research, whenever you are going for certain procedures, whenever you are advising certain treatment protocols, then there are chances of minimum harm. So then that should be openly conveyed to the patient, as well as research participants, as well as patients' relatives. Yes, this is the harm that will be there at the end of the research. And after that, after knowing all these details, if those research participants are ready to participate, then that is the informed consent, and that is very important. Also, say if we are not following these things, then what will happen? Certainly, we are lowering the credibility of our research, because if our methods are questionable, then certainly whatever data we have collected at the end of the research, nobody is going to trust that data. So yes, if our methods are valid, are justified, are approved by ethical committee, then everybody is going to trust whatever data we have collected. Then yes, while doing research, the human dignity and rights throughout the research, we have to protect that. Now, what is the procedure of getting ethical approval? Because at least in medical science, you cannot start your research without the approval of ethical committee. So in every medical institute, first there will be a research committee. They will analyze they will verify all the scientific aspects of your research proposal. After that research committee approves that research proposal, then it goes to ethical committee. Now, ethical committee, there is a specific structure that we are going to see. Ethical committee has to approve that research proposal. So first research committee, then institutional ethical committee, we call it as IEC. After getting this proposal, we'll be getting a letter of IEC. Then everything has to be uploaded on a website. We call it as CTRI. So Clinical Trial Registry of India. We have to approve, we have to upload everything. Your research synopsis, the software is there. We have to provide all the information. CTRI, the committee which is there at the center, they will go through everything. And most important, they'll be asking the letter, that is ethical approval. They'll be asking the number, date, everything. And when they are satisfied, then they will give you a letter. Okay, now you can start your research. Then and then only you can start the research. The first patient or research participant should only be registered after the approval of CTRI. If before the approval of CTRI, if you are recruited 50, 70, 100 registers, none of them will be accepted by the committee, or even further research committees whenever we will be facing for PhD particularly. So approval of these committees is quite mandatory. Now, yes, whenever we are about to start, so before data collection, we need to have the approval of Institutional Review Board or IEC committee. Now, what is the role of this committee? Yes, they are going to see everything. So the synopsis has to be thoroughly studied by research committee as well as ethical committee. They are going to check your research question, what are your aims, objectives, materials, and methods, even sampling method, why the sample has been kept as 100, 200, or 500. So all questions will be there, and we need to satisfy those committee members. Then only they are going to approve that. Yes, in medical science particularly, IC is very important and CTRI is important. Now let us see what is the structure of IC. So this is a standard nationalized structure which is approved by ICMR, which says that the IC should be a multidisciplinary and multi-sectorial composition should be there. Number of persons vary from 8 to 12 numbers. Now, two specific members are very important, the chairperson. And what IC guidelines says that the chairperson should not be from the institute. It means the person should be out of the institute. He should not be related to your institute in any other way. Member secretary should be from the institute, and he is the person who is looking towards the entire business of IC. It means calling the research proposals, scrutiny of the research proposals, then calling the IC meeting. So everything. That is the business of member secretary. Now, who are the members of this IC? Yes, chairperson who is from not from the institute. Then 1 to 2 basic medical sciences. From basic sciences, they should be there. From basic science as well as from the institute, that is who is from medical field. Then 1 to 2 clinicians from institute as well as from other institute, just to avoid the bias. Then 1 legal expert or retired judge is mandatory for this committee, who will be looking into the legal aspect as well as legal rights of the patients. Then 1 social scientist or representative of non-governmental agency is mandatory. Then 1 philosopher who will be thinking about or going through the research proposal, and if there are certain questions related to general way of conducting the research, then he will be dealing with those questions. 1 lay person should be there. Why? Because whatever research proposal we have given, then how we are going to convince the common man, what are the consents? Even most of the consent should be trilingual or bilingual. So he will be going through all these questions. And last, member secretary. Now, what is the role of member secretary? This is the structure of, or this is the flow chart, how IC works. So now first, proposals will be invited from the research scholars or faculty members. Then after going from the first, when there is research committee scrutinizing those research proposals, if it is found that okay, they are good and that can be sent to IC, then those research proposals will be sent to IC. Then primary and secondary reviewers will be finalized. Generally, 2 reviewers are required. 1 reviewer from the institute and another reviewer from the same field or expertise from another institute, just to avoid the bias. Then all the proposals will be sent to both the reviewers. After getting the reviews of both the researchers, if the research proposal is good to go for IC meeting, then IC meeting will be called. Before that, all the agenda and everything will be conveyed to all IC committee people. Then during the IC meeting, all these research scholars along with their supervisors, they'll attend this meeting. They will share the entire research proposal. Then there'll be discussion, because already those research proposals and synopsis are sent to reviewers. So now whosoever is sitting in that committee, all those IC members, at least will have the primary understanding of what you want to do. They will be ready with their questions. Then all those questions will be raised during the meeting. Research scholar as well as the supervisor, they have to satisfy those IC members. Then whatever the decision, whether it is positive or negative, that will be documented. That will not be immediately conveyed to the research scholar or supervisor. Everything will be documented, signatures will be taken, and now on the next day or within a week, all those remarks will be given or sent to the research supervisor as well as research scholar. They have to modify their research proposal. Whatever queries were there, they have to satisfy. Again, all those queries will be sent back to those IC members who have raised them. And when they are satisfied and when they give a green signal, then IC, that member secretary, will issue a letter. That letter will have the signature of member secretary as well as the chairperson. And now that letter is very much important. The research scholar has to upload that ethical committee approval letter on a CTRI website. And when CTRI gives you a green signal, then and then only you start the research project or proposal. This is for medical research. Generally, only IRB institutional review boards will be there. You submit a proposal, they will give you approval, then you can start the research. So if successful, you can start the work. And if some changes, yes, this is very important. Say IC or IRB has given an approval, you have started your work, and during your work, you are facing certain problems, maybe related to sample size, maybe related to certain methods. And now, after a thorough discussion with your guide, you want to make some changes, very critical changes in your research proposal. Then again, you have to send everything to the IC. if IEC approves, if there is genuine justification for that. Say, for example, during Corona, what has happened? Everybody was having like survey studies or during researches, the sample size was very big. But as all the research participants were facing big problem, then there was like all those queries were raised in IEC. Then IEC came up with certain relaxations for those research participants. The numbers were reduced and then they can start. So what is important is whatever you have proposed in your synopsis, when it is once approved by IEC, you cannot make a single change in that proposal without the written approval of IEC. So if you want to make any changes, again you have to approach IEC. You get it, you get the approval of that IEC, and when they approve, then only you can change the materials, method, sample size, whatever changes you want to do. If the committee is not convinced, then again you have to resubmit. Even many times it has happened that the research topics or research questions, the researcher or the supervisor, they have to leave that topic, they have to come up with some other topic. So sometimes it takes around 6 months to 1 year to finalize or to get the approval of IEC. So that's a very tough job. Yes, ethical issues, if they are there in your study, that should be clearly mentioned while taking approval. Now, what kind of ethical issues? Now, these are the very common ethical issue. First is voluntary participations. So, whenever we are approaching our research participants or research subjects, we need to clearly convey them that they are free to either opt in or out. So, at their choice, they can enter in your research proposal or they can quit the research proposal at any point of time. It is not like that, okay, now 6 months have passed, now you cannot leave. No. As per their choice, they can join and they can leave your research. Informed consent is very much important. So we need to provide all kinds of information. And what is the way? So we need to come up with some material, maybe a printed material. We should share with all the proposed research participants. They should know everything about the purpose, benefit, risk, even funding. Who is funding? Because there's a conflict of interest with the institute, with the pharma company. So the participants should know that who is going to fund this research. So after reading that entire leaflet or material, if he is convinced, okay, let me participate, then only they can give a written consent to you. Then the next topic, ethical issue is anonymity. So now what is anonymity? Yes, we should not know the identities of the participants, or we should not collect any information which will collect that data to a particular person. But it is always not possible. So in medical research, keeping anonymity is not possible, because whenever we are doing a research, we are dealing with our patients. So obviously when we are dealing with our patients, we know everything about their name, their identity, their address, their phone number, their email ID. So in that condition, the next point comes, and that is confidentiality. So though we have collected that information, it is the moral responsibility of the researcher, that is the scholar as well as research supervisor, that we need to keep that entire information confidential. We cannot share that information. Even if they are like husband and wife, if they are coming to your OPD, one of them is now research participant, they are something very crucial to you. You cannot share that information without the permission of the spouse. So confidentiality is one of the most important ethical aspects. And whenever IC is going to approve your research proposal, informed consent is very much important. Voluntary participation is important. How you are going to keep either anonymity or confidentiality. Next, the main or crucial point of IC will be, they will be looking into what kind of harm will be there, whether it's a physical, social, psychological, or legal kind of harm. So the lawyer who is sitting there, or a person who comes from a philosophical background, they are going to look into these aspects. And if they are convinced, then only they are going to approve you for that research project. And the last and most important is research communication or result communication. So yes, these two things, as I previously told, there shouldn't be any kind of plagiarism and there shouldn't be research misconduct. So whatever we are communicating, it should be 100% crystal clear and with 100% honesty. That is very much important. Now, what is voluntary participation? Yes, all the research subjects are free. And what is important is there shouldn't be any kind of coercion or pressure. So there shouldn't be any kind of force from your side or your supervisor side or institution side that they must enroll. So they should enroll with their free choice. Then what is important is though they have given consent, but they can withdraw that consent at any point of view. What is important, there shouldn't be any kind of obligation. You cannot emotionally blackmail our research participants. So now, like it has passed on like 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. So much time you have wasted, so much money, so much medicine we have wasted in you. The medicine was so much costly. So this kind of emotional blackmailing, or you cannot put the pressure on your research participant. So this is not acceptable. Yes, most important is you cannot ask a reason that why they want to leave. You cannot force them that they should give a valid reason. Research participant or that research subject can leave your research proposal at any time without giving any prior notice, and that too without giving any reason. So these are the most important rights of research participants. Then what is important is whenever he or she is leaving your research, there shouldn't be any negative consequences or repercussions. Say, for example, the patient is regularly he has been visiting a hospital for last 4 to 6 years. Now we cannot tell them that if you do not participate in this research, we will not treat you. So there will be dire consequences. We will not treat you. The doctors are not going to see. You will be kept in waiting list for a very long time. So that kind of consequences or repercussions shouldn't be there for the refusal of the participation. Now, yes, we need to respect whatever decision they are giving. So there shouldn't be any effort from either your side or your colleagues or your friends that you please continue. The number of patients are very less. Research participants are very less. So emotional blackmailing is not at all appreciable at this level. So now let us see what are the examples of this voluntary participation. So we need to tell them, yes, they are protected by various national and international laws, by the code of conduct. And yes, we need to take special care. Now this word is important. Yes, vulnerable groups. So whenever we are dealing with vulnerable groups, now what are vulnerable groups? Vulnerable groups are a group of people, pediatric or geriatric or prisoners or physically incapable or mentally those who cannot give the decision. So all those people who cannot take the decision on their own. So this is a vulnerable group of people, and whenever we are associated with any kind of research where the research participant is vulnerable, then informed consent has to be taken, but not only from that individual, also from a person who is legally representing that research participants. So whenever we are dealing with vulnerable groups, we should make sure that we are taking the consents properly. And yes, if they want to leave, then they'll convey it to their legal guardians, and legal guardians at any time can take a decision to leave your research study. Yes, informed consent, as we have seen, we need to give 100% information. We shouldn't keep some information which is very crucial with us, because if like some legal issue arises that the patient has like got some physical harm or psychological harm or even financial harm or legal harm, then they can sue you if your informed consent is not proper. So 100% of information should be there. Yes, what kind of information that we have seen? Benefit, risk, funding, and institutional approval. If they ask, you need to show them institutional approval. Now let us see what examples related to informed consent. Now, yes, one of the research participant was enrolling research like subjects at a railway station for a quick survey. Now, all potential participants with all the relevant information about these things. This information we need to provide them. What is this study about? What are the risk benefits? How long it is going to be continued? Even supervisor's role is very much important. And even if they ask, you need to provide the name, the phone number, the address of research supervisor, as well as the details about your institution and institutional approval number. We also should tell them that all the information that we are giving them, it is 100% confidential. And during the process, as they have started filling that form, during the process, at any question, if they are hesitating, that they are not comfortable with, that moment they can leave. We cannot ask them that you have filled the form like 70%, 80%, 90%, and now you just fill it. No. At any moment, we need to clearly convey them that any moment they can leave. Yes, this is also important. They have given us informed consent. But after going home or after like starting the treatment, maybe after like few weeks or few days or few months, if they feel they are not comfortable with this research, then we need to give the information to them about whom to contact, how to contact, and the process should be done. And that research participant should be provided the liberty to leave our research proposal. Then the best way is to provide them some literature, or we can prepare some brochures. We either we can prepare some e-material, we can share that e-material through social media with them. They should go through thoroughly, and if they're convinced, they can join. If they are ready, they can give the consent form. Now, whenever we are taking consent form, there are two signatures are very important. First, who is signing the form and who is taking the consent. Both the forms are very much important. All the consent forms should be minimum bilingual. So, for example, in a hospital, all our consent forms are bilingual, that is in English and Gujarati. So, in many research studies, if it is like multi-centric study, then we need to come up with trilingual. There'll be English, there'll be Hindi, and there'll be one regional language. So, this is how informed consent should be prepared. Yes, if like there's some literacy issue, the research participants or wherever we are conducting research, the people are illiterate, then there should be somebody who will tell them verbally, and the person who has told that information, we need to take the name and signature. Okay, patient signature, our signature. So there'll be 3 signatures on that format, and when they agree, then only we can take that informed consent. And if somewhere there's language issues, if English proficiency is not there, then one more option is go for bilingual or trilingual consent. If you are not having bilingual or trilingual, then there should be interpreter. The interpreter should be there. He should interpret it properly. 100% information should be provided in the patient's language. Then the signature of the patient, interpreter, and the research scholar should be there on the informed consent. And say, for example, some legal issue has arise after like few months or even after completing the research, and if the informed consent is not signed by the patient, then you are in a big trouble. So these are very important issues. So whenever whenever we are submitting our research data at the interval of like 3 months, 6 months, then whatsoever research committee is there, they have to go through all these documents. So all these documents should be properly signed, properly documented, proper name of the person, even time, date, everything should be properly mentioned. Then we are legally protected. Yes, one more thing. Informed consent can be given by a person, particularly we are talking about India. Whosoever is 18 years of age can give informed consent. But now what about the individuals who are less than 18 years? For example, pediatric patient is there. Now we are associated with a research where we need to collect the data of a person or a group of students who are less than 18 years. Then along with consent, one more thing is required, and that is known as assent. Now assent is just the information. So as the kid is like 10 years, 12 years or 14 years, he understands his body, he understands what you are going to do with his body. So we need to take assent. Along with that, we need to take the informed consent of the legal guardian or parents. So whenever we are dealing with pediatric research, then we need to have 2 consent. First is informed consent and second is informed assent. Now anonymity. So anonymity, 100% information which is going, so data should not be connected to a person. So how to do that? So the information like name, phone number, email address, IP addresses, even physical characteristics like photos, even videos, this kind of information should not be retained by a research scholar. Then whatever data we are collecting, that data will not be connected to that person. So preferably, if it is possible, and if your research aims are not compromised, then it's always better to keep the anonymity. But in many cases, it is not possible. That 100% anonymization is not possible. Then, say for example, data collected in person. So whenever in medical research we are dealing, it is not possible. So as we are doing it in person, or if it is like telephonic interview, then you have got the phone numbers. If it is like you have sent a Google form and now you have collected the email IDs, then the personal data is with us. So sometimes it is very difficult to keep that data anonymous. So now what we need to do is, and even
So,
one case.
excuse me, sir.
Yes.
I guess your screen is not visible. Can you please share it again?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Since when, ma'am?
Since 2 minutes, 1 minute or 2 minutes, not more
Okay,
than
okay,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Just let me stop the share.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is it visible now?
Yes, it is visible, sir.
It is anonymity, na, on your screen?
Yes, yes. We didn't miss anything important. So you
Okay, fine.
continue.
So I was talking about anonymity. Why anonymity is to be compromised? Because the third point. Because when you are providing the opportunity for your research participants that anytime they can withdraw their consent, in that condition you have to provide all the information. You have to take the information, you have to provide all the information. So in those conditions, anonymity is not possible. So now what to do? There's one more way, and we call it as data pseudonymization. Now, what is data pseudonymization? It is simply what we have been doing in our exams. In exams, what we do is we provide dummy numbers. So in the same way, we need to provide some fake identifiers or pseudonymous to the data. So there will be personal data, then there will be research data, and there will be some fake identifiers will be there. So the data can only be linked to the participant, but it's harder to do so because you separate that personal information from the study data. So we need to separate personal information, person identifiers from the research data. Then for that research data, we need to provide certain alphabets or numbers. And throughout our analysis, we will not be using the personal data, but we will be only using the those either digits or alphabets. So this is how we can keep the personal data confidential. Yes, yes, these are the examples you can see here. Each participant is given a random 3-digit number. So throughout our research study, now that research data is only connected to that 3-digit number. So nobody will be able to connect that data to a particular person. So this is how we can keep the confidentiality. Yes, the survey data can only be linked to personally identifying data via those random numbers. Now, as I told you, always this anonymity is not possible. Whenever we are dealing with social science or medical research, that is very difficult. So whenever anonymity is not possible, we have to consider the second option, and that is confidentially. So we will be collecting all the personal information, but we will not share that personal information with anybody. So we will be removing that data. So all participants have a right to privacy. This is very important. So we need to protect that personal data as long as you store. Because for all the researches, it is important that we need to retain that data for at least duration of 5 years. Even there's a category of research where we need to store that research data for more than 5 years. So whenever we are retaining that information, we should make sure that that confidentiality should be properly maintained. So now how to do that? Yes. So to keep your data confidential, what we need to do is, Yes, all those files, wherever all those informed consents are taken or consent forms are there, that should be in a locked file drawer. Or if it is like e-files, then password protect all files should be there with the survey data. So nobody can see you, nobody can go through your computers or your personal data. This is what we can do for confidentiality. And most important is only other researcher who is approved by the institutional research board can be allowed to access that data. And most important, whosoever is accessing that data, he should be well aware about the code of conduct or institutional privacy, data privacy policy. So if he or she is aware, then they are very much aware about the importance of confidentiality and privacy and dignity of the patient. So this is how we can keep the confidentiality. Now, yes, this is example. Even sometimes confidentiality is very difficult. Say, for example, let us take this example where we are, it's a group study now. We are inviting people in maybe a group of 5 people, 10 people, and at a time the interviews are done. So now in that time, everybody knows the personal information, like their phone numbers, personal information. We have seen each other. And that time, keeping privacy is very difficult. So what we have to do is, just we need to let them know that whatever we have been discussed, that should be kept confidential. We need to share the importance of them. And also along with that, we need to tell about the harms. Because as it's a group study, it is not possible to keep the data 100% confidential. So whosoever is participating, they should be well aware that there are chances of data leaks. And if they are ready, then only they should give the consent. So in the beginning, if you are told, then that is okay. Now, what kind of harms? Yes, psychological harm. Say, for example, whenever we are interviewing the patients or in social sciences, whenever we are asking some odd questions, then sensitive questions. So those questions or tasks may trigger some negative emotions, or it may lead to some very disturbing past of that person, or it may lead to some shame or anxiety. So that kind of psychological harm is associated with our research. Even social harm is there, like social risk or public embarrassment or stigma if a person is participating. So it is there. Even physical harm. So whenever we are dealing with medical research, yes, whatever medicines you are giving, then there are chances of pain or injury or harm to certain important organs. So everything has to be told in advance. After telling all the details, if the patients and patients' relatives are convinced, then only we should start the research. Even one more thing is there, yes, legal harm. Some sensitive data is there. There are chances of legally the data is very important, and during research, if the privacy is compromised, if the data breach is there, then there are serious consequences of those things. So it's what is important is always we should make maximum efforts to reduce this harm. Wherever it is possible, keep it as zero. If the harm is like inadvertent, then we need to tell them that this is minimum will be there. And if they are convinced, then only they should be enrolled for the research studies. Yes, the role of research supervisor is important because he has supervised many research studies, and he knows very well that how the harm can be reduced at a minimum level. So the big role of research guide or research supervisor is there. In the beginning, we need to tell everything about this. If there is harm, then at the end of the research, we need to provide certain resources or some counseling sessions or some additional medication should be provided for those research harm. This is what we can do. And this also should be told in the beginning. Now, yes, this is one more example. Say, for example, some of these questions as may bring up some emotions, negative emotions about our research participants during the survey studies. Then we need to assure them about the confidentiality. And also, say, for example, if a student is associated with that and it was related to alcohol consumption and stress. Okay, so whenever we are taking that information, some private information they'll be sharing, and the consequences of that some shame is associated with that. Even if the student, at the end of our research, we need to provide them some numbers of some de-addiction centers, or if at our level, if we can provide some counseling to them, then that is okay. Or we need to provide them certain solutions, or say ways that how to deal with that alcohol addiction. So this is how we can make sure that whatever research we are doing, that should be properly done, and if harm is there, then that should be properly managed. Then talking about research communication, yes, ethical issues are there. So whenever we are communicating, 100% honesty is required. The data should be 100% reliable and credible, and always 100% transparency as far as possible should be there. The two issues related to plagiarism and research misconduct should be 100% avoided. We all know what is plagiarism. Plagiarism is submitting others' work on our own name, and we are not giving due credit to that person, whosoever has done that kind of research. But sometimes what happens, it can be unintentional. So copying someone else's work without that credit amounts to stealing. So we all know that whenever we are not giving due credit to him, it means it is stealing, and that should be avoided. So what kind of harm will be there? It can be a big harm to the science, it can be a harm to that person, and it can be a harm to whosoever is going to refer your paper. So that's why this should be avoided. Even when we talk about plagiarism, sometimes many researchers are associated with self-plagiarism. It means we are republishing or resubmitting the same data or the same papers, and we are not giving due credit to the previous publishers. So that should not be there, because whosoever the previous publishers, the copyrights are there. So we are infringing upon their copyrights, and in future we may face certain legal suits. So that's why it is better to avoid that. So violating ethical code, and ultimately it will be the wastage of time and resources. So that's why it should be avoided. In extreme cases, it has been seen that entire data sets or papers with other name. So in history, there are many issues, and then the research papers are withdrawn. So that should not be there. Then ethical violations, because they can skew the research findings. Because if we are publishing the same data, either own or others' data, then whatever the research findings, because when meta-analysis is done, all those research papers will be considered as the different research papers. Then there will be big issue, because whatever the conclusions will be there, like there at the end of that meta-analysis, they will not be trustworthy. So that's why it should be avoided. Now,
So
yes.
we lost the screen again.
Oh.
Yeah.
Extremely sorry, some technical issues. Now, ma'am, can you see?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Just a minute. So now, can you see research misconduct?
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Okay. So plagiarism was about like we are publishing someone else like ideas or papers or their work. Now research misconduct is like falsifying data. This is more dangerous than plagiarism. So manipulating data analysis or misinterpreting results. So your hypothesis was whatever your hypothesis, but your research is not supporting your hypothesis. Now you are manipulating the data, and this is research misconduct. And yes, it is almost as equal as academic fraud, and it is not at all acceptable. So we need to convey to our research scholars or students that they should stay away. So proper thorough analysis or honest analysis of research data should be done, and falsification should not be there. Yes, it's a serious ethical issue because it can undermine, yes, both the things. Because as research is done for the science, and as research is done by the research supervisor and institution, so we are putting big question on the credibility of the supervisor as well as institution. Because whatever researches which are done in those institutions, though they are genuine research, But again, all those researches will be like, there will be big question mark on the integrity of those researches. And yes, ultimately we are putting big question on the scientific integrity. So that's why we should stay away from this. Ultimately, it will be wastage of funding as well as resources. Now, yes, these are the examples of research misconduct, particularly medical science. You might be knowing about MMR vaccine, that is measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine. So in 1998, Mr. Andrew Wakefield, what he and others did, they published a paper. Now it is a debunk, it's a withdrawn paper, claiming that measles, mumps, and rubella vaccines cause autism. So obviously, MMR vaccine is given to avoid all these diseases. But now these researchers came up with a data and research papers that if this vaccine is given, then it leads to autism. And autism is a serious problem because it's a lifelong problem. There is no permanent cure for autism. So what has happened? Many parents, after whenever they come across it, even pediatricians as well as parents, they stop giving this vaccine. So later investigations reveal that these research scholars, Mr. Andrew Wakefield and his team, they fabricated and manipulated the data just to show a non-existing link between vaccines and autism. So it was all fabricated data. So this is the biggest example of research misconduct. So Wakefield also neglected to disclose important conflict of interest, and his medical license ultimately was taken away. Now, what was the issue? This fraudulent work sparked vaccine hesitancy. Even in Corona also we come across with such kind of hesitancies, because there are many misconceptions that, okay, this kind of vaccines will be like serious threat to the people. So there are many persons who have not taken a single vaccine, because everybody knows that it takes around 8 to 10 years to create a new vaccine. But in Corona, so much haste was there. As many people, even we have seen the second wave of Corona in India that was deadly. So all the pharma companies, they come up with a vaccine within a duration of like maybe 6 months, 6 months to 8 months. So the total, their research method is questionable. So whenever such kind of vaccines come, there's hesitation between people whether they should go for those vaccines or not. So now what has happened? The rate of MMR vaccination in children drastically fell, and measles outbreaks became more common due to the lack of herd immunity. Because whenever a vaccination is given, herd immunity develops, and majority of the kids were saved from this kind of diseases. But due to such papers, such misconceptions, many people didn't go for this MMR vaccination, and then there'll be outbreaks of there were outbreaks of measles. So this was a blunder. So what is the reality? There was no exact evidences which can connect this MMR vaccine to the autism. But ultimately, what has happened? Although the paper was retracted, it has received thousands of citations. Yes, there are scientists on both the sides of the line. There are people who connect or who believe that these vaccines are not good, and there are scientists who believe that they are not good. Now we have to go through the data, and ultimately we have to think, use our own analysis, and accordingly we have to take the decision. Now, yes, there are certain ethical failures in the history, not ethical failures, but these are all research tragedies actually. These research failures took the life of many people, maybe thousands of people, and majority of them were abused, majority of them were prisoners, majority of them were not mentally or physically fit to take the decision. Those researches were done without informed consent. Even proper information was not provided. So all of these research tragedies has happened in the past, and that's why various code of conduct, Helsinki's Declaration or Nuremberg Code, or the ethical code of ICMR, this very strong history, why this code of conduct have been developed. So now, yes, you all must be knowing about Nazi experiments from 1942 to 1945. What they have done is horrific experiments on thousands of imprisoned people. So they are all soldiers, they are all war prisoners, There's a code of conduct, there's a protocol for war prisoners, but Germany didn't follow that. From 42 to 45, whatever researches were done, they were done by highly intellectual medical doctors and scientists, but most of these experiments were inhumane, and ultimately they led to trauma, permanent disabilities in those research participants, and worst is death. So the participation of prisoners, whatever prisoners, was always forced. That was not, there was no informed consent. There was no voluntary participation was there. Participants often belong to marginalized community, or like Jewish people or disabled people or Rome people. So the minority were targeted by this researches. And that's why Nuremberg Code has to come into picture. So it's a new standard for human experimentation in medical research. So in 1947, they have come up with strict guidelines. So whenever a medical scientist or research is going for a research, they have to imply, or they have to, whatever the research is, that should be in line with Nuremberg Code. Then Tuskegee syphilis study, that is also very important. You all might be knowing about this study. And what is the worst thing is that this study was conducted in USA, which is considered as most developed country. They have maximum resources. They knew everything about how to conduct research. But then also 40 years from 1932 to 72, this syphilis study was conducted. 600 young black men who were suffering from syphilis were enrolled for this study. Why they were enrolled? Because a promise was made that free healthcare facilities will be provided. But up to 40 years, still a whistleblower blown about this Tuskegee syphilis study. From 32 to 72, none of the research participants out of 600 could get the exact medicine, and that is penicillin, and which was invented in 1943. So from 1932 to 72, it was only an observational study. Why it was done? Just the scientists wanted to study what is the impact of syphilis on the human beings. So all these research participants were like, you can see here, serious health problems, including blindness or serious complications, or third, even death was there. And when treatment was available in 1943, that is after 11 years of this observational study, none of the participants was provided that genuine treatment. And by the end of that study, what has happened? 120 participants had died. So treatment was available. All the scientists, doctors, nurses who were involved in that study, they were knowing that yes, the treatment is available, but they made all the research participants as guinea pigs, and they were study the impact of syphilis on those individuals till they die. So the study ended after whistleblower, when it was declared that it is medically unjustified, then it was stopped. Now this is one more research study, somewhat similar. Albert Neisser, discoverer of gonococcus, what he did, in order to find a prevention for syphilis, he injected cell-free serum from patients with syphilis into patients who were admitted for other medical conditions. So they were all patients. They came to hospital for different medical conditions, and all of them were commercial sex workers, and undue benefit was taken by Albert Neisser, and they injected this serum. They introduced this disease, and when he was asked about why he did that, he told that anyhow, as they are all sex workers, they are going to suffer from syphilis in future, near future, and that's why he selected sex workers for this study. And when some of them actually contracted syphilis, he told vaccination didn't work. So all the research participants, the sex workers, were never told, the consent was not taken. So this kind of research, like tragedies, happened in the past. Yes, these are the examples of Nazi experiments. You can see here, this is the hypothermia experiments. So a prisoner is submerged in a tank which is filled with cold water. And what they did, the goal was just to see that whenever a German pilot would survive after parachuting, for how much time he will survive in the cold North Sea. So the war prisoner was kept in that cold water till he died. So just to note that how much time it takes to die if the soldier like falls in that sea. So this kind of experiments. Then another experiment was done, high altitude experiment. Prisoners were put into low pressure tanks with little oxygen. The purpose was just to see that whenever the pilots, when they come out of, say, when they are in high altitude areas, for how much time they will survive. So what they did, many of those who didn't die immediately, they were put underwater till they died. So this kind of experiment just to see, just to study that how much time a person can survive whenever there's less oxygen or high altitude area or it's extreme cold water. So just to note down the time. So this kind of experiment, and these are all real photographs. Then there's one more study, Willowbrook study is there. Research is done at a school of mentally handicapped children. And when we use the word mentally handicapped children, it means it's a vulnerable group. And in vulnerable group, extra cautious should be there during research. Institution could only take in those accepting participants in the study. So all the students who were mentally handicapped, they were forced that if you participate in this study, then only you will be enrolled in the study. Otherwise, you'll not be enrolled and you'll not be getting a fair right of education. As all they were coming from, even poor people, it is one of the criteria for vulnerable. So poor people had no other institutional choice. So all of them enrolled. Parents were not completely told what this is about, and what they did is deliberately injected live hepatitis virus. So first compromise is vulnerable patients. Then they were forced. So there was no voluntary consent. Then there was no informed consent. So this kind of like tragedies have happened in the past. Then one more study. This is about Jewish chronic disease hospital study happened in 1960. What they did, a study was conducted to determine patients' rejection to the live cancer cell. 22 patients were injected with suspension containing live cancer cell. No remedy was available. Then also they were injected with this live cancer cell. Physician from this reputed institute for cancer research directed the study. And the irony of all these research studies or research tragedies is that most of the research are conducted by highly intellectual peoples, highly expert doctors. So sometimes the conclusion is that most of research tragedies are done by not common people, they are done by this highly intellectual. So sometimes it is like science was overriding the patient's rights and benefits, which shouldn't happen actually. So study conducted without the informed consent. They are not informed what they'll be ingested with, what kind of like cancer they are going to suffer in future. So this was the issue with this. Now, yes, all these ethical failures like this result in severe harm to the participants. Wasted resources were there and lower trust. Ultimately, when such research studies come out in the public domain, ultimately the science and the scientists, there will be big question on both the things. And this is why all research institutions have strict ethical guidelines for performing the research. So this is all about, I think, my presentation. Now we will be seeing, this is just an exercise. Now all those participants, just they should read this and they should try to find out what is the issue, what is the ethical issue with this problem. Now, what is the research study? Two graduate students have made some measurements on a new material. Whatever data was collected, this data is on the graph. To prove their hypothesis, the result should lie only on this curve. To students consider omitting the two data. So these two data sets were not on this curve. So what they did is, which were off the theoretical curve. So they just removed this. So now what is the ethical issue with this? Can anybody tell me? If you have, there are I think 4 or 5 like exercises we'll be doing. All the data which is collected is on the screen. The data which supports the hypothesis is on the curve. The data which didn't support is here. What the student did, he just removed it. He only showed this data. And this is called as outlier. Outlier is something which doesn't support your hypothesis. So whenever we are collecting a data, whatever data we have collected, 100% of the data is not going to support a hypothesis. There will be few of the outliers. Then what to do? Shall we skip them? Can anybody answer this? Just you need to identify what is the issue, what is the ethical issue with this research. Research is done, majority of the data is supports your hypothesis, but there were two outliers which are not supporting. He didn't include that while reporting the research.
So there is a student who says in the chat box, that is Jayashri Prem Kumar
Okay.
ma'am, she says that seems unethical.
Okay, how unethical? That is what I'm asking. What should have been done actually? Does the student has the liberty to remove this outlier? If there are students, can they unmute themselves?
Yes, sir, they can.
So can anybody tell me what should be done?
There is another student, that is Atul Sate. He says misreporting has happened.
Absolutely, misreporting has happened. Ideally, whenever, because when we report our research, whenever there's a research communication, there should be 100% data should be like shared with the readers. So what he has done, now let us see what is the issue. It is unethical as it would amount to falsification of the data, because 100% of the data is not shared. What the student should have done, actually, he should have included outliers and given the genuine reason for that, why they are not in line with that, or find out statistically acceptable ways of trimming the outliers. If you want to trim the outliers, then we should come up with a justification that why this data I am not going to keep in my final outcome of the research. So if there are outliers, you should include them. And if you want to trim them, we should come up with a genuine justification. Then only it will be a ethically correct approach. Now, this is second. A group of medical students conducted a research on the awareness of diabetic diet in medical clinic participants. Okay, their research was recognized as the best undergraduate research. It was appreciated, and later they submitted the same research paper to two different journals, so that just to find out which journal published it first. Because for a student, it is very much important that whosoever is going to publish first, let them go with that. So because if you go to first journal, after 3-4 months they tell you, no, we cannot take up, then you have to approach another journal. So that is a wastage of time. So what the student did, he sent the research proposal or research paper to two different journals. Now, what is the ethical issue in this? It will be better if students can unmute themselves. We can have one-to-one talk directly.
Students, you can, unmute yourself and answer sir directly. But sir,
Sir,
yeah.
Yes.
I think you cannot give it to two journals at the same time, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we cannot submit the same paper at two journals. Then what to do now? So unethical, as it would result in inadvertent double counting or inappropriate weighting of the results of a single study, which distorts the available evidence. It would give a false idea of the number of publications in a given area. So what we should do is we should submit to one journal and wait for the response prior to submit to another journal. When we get a rejection, then only we should submit to another journal. Now the third issue. Students are required to prepare a research proposal during their undergraduate program. Now there were two students, X and Y. X developed the idea for his project and discussed with friend Y. Okay, they have discussed. Several months later, he found that his idea had been submitted as a research proposal by his friend Y without his knowledge. Now, what is the ethical issue? They both discussed. Then one submitted a proposal. Is there any ethical issue in this?
This seems to be the intellectual property
Correct.
violation.
Absolutely.
Also, sir, the consent was not taken.
Okay. So yes, Y should have taken the consent from X, correct?
Yes.
Actually, it's an intellectual property of X. Either both of them should submit or X should submit. And if Y want to submit, then he should have consulted first. Now let us see. Yes. Unethical as failure to give credit to the person whose idea. That is very important. IP is very important. I think there was one presentation only on IP. So that amounts to plagiarism. So should discuss and include as a co-author. If Y wants to submit a proposal, there's no issue. He should discuss it with X. Both of them should sit together. Both of them should prepare a proposal, and then with the consent of X, Y can submit a proposal. There is nothing wrong in submitting the proposal by Y, but without consulting, there is an ethical issue. Now group 4. Now there are 4 friends. They decided to work together on a research project during the vacation. Okay, now what has happened? One of them went abroad during the vacation and didn't contribute to the research. They discussed in the beginning, but one of them couldn't get the time. So rest of the 3 persons, the friends include all 4 names in a presentation made at a scientific congress. Now what is the ethical issue? First, is there any ethical issue? Because both of them have already discussed. In previously, they discussed, name was not there. Now here, all of them have discussed. All of the names are there. Then what is the ethical issue now?
This, I think, it depends on the understanding among these 4 students, because one person was there as a contributor, right, in the beginning.
Yes.
And then he went on vacation. So if all others are fine with it, I don't see the ethicality.
You just see the second line. One of them went abroad during the vacation and didn't contribute to the research. Okay, when idea was discussed, he was there. But whenever that was research conducted, he was not there. But as they were all very good friends, they thought, let us present with all the names. The ethical issue is unethical, because this is unethical, as only those who contributed intellectually should cited as authors. So he was there in the beginning, but throughout the research, he was not involved. So there are various criteria for authorships. Only if you are a part of idea and if throughout research procedure, if you are not there, then you cannot be a genuine author. Okay. So those who contribute in other ways may be acknowledged. So if he was like the part of discussion, then his name should not be in the author's list, but his name should be in the acknowledgement. Okay, the 4th student should be acknowledged. Okay, he was there. So this is the way. Now the fifth group. A group of undergraduate students plan a research project on the detection of fetal abnormalities. Okay. They're all associated with gynecology in the second trimester by ultrasound scanning. They collected data from the scan room without informing the mothers. Now, what is the ethical issue in this? They were all there. Okay. Fetal abnormalities they were detecting during sonographies. In second trimester, all the sonographies, they collected the data from the supervisor or from the hospital. But the only thing is that didn't inform the mothers, because mothers were like many patients are visiting our OPDs or IPDs. They just collected the data.
Confidentiality issues are.
Consent is missing.
Confidentiality.
Confidentiality.
So consent is missing, right?
Yes, absolutely. So unethical as informed consent was not taken. Rather, consent was not taken because we are supposed to take the consent from the mothers, because the data we are taking is from mothers. So though there is no advantage or disadvantage to the mother, she is least bothered. But science says, ethical committee says, IEC says that you need to take written consent of the mother. You cannot take her data without her permission. So that was the ethical issue. Now this is last exercise. Again, a group of undergraduate students collected data from a group of bankers with their consent. Now here the consent is there. What was the work about? Regarding their working hours, their salaries. So bank officers, their working hours and their salaries, and in relation with prevalence of high blood pressure. Okay. So subsequently, the researchers who have collected the data gave the same data to another group. Like there were 20-30 students were doing the research. One group collected this data. Okay. The data was sufficient for them, but another group was also doing something related to such data. So they just discussed it, and one of them came to know that the similar kind of data is with group A. So what they did, group B asked group A that you please share data. As they were all batchmates, group A shared the data with group B. They were all institutional students. They have taken consent. Now, what is the ethical issue?
Sir, I think they have to take the consent again, because if there is some modification in the contract, you have to again take the permission.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now consent, even there is one more type of consent, shared consent. Okay. Now it is unethical because we are violating the principles of consent and confidentiality, because that group, so whosoever were banking people, they have given the consent to group A only. So data should only be used by group A, and if group B wants to use the same data, then there should be some changes in the consent, and in that consent it should be clearly mentioned that the data will be shared with group B, because they are also doing the same kind of work. And if bank people are ready to give the shared consent, then only this data or this data sharing is considered as ethical. So yes, this was all about from my side. Let me leave you with this beautiful quote from Professor Altman, who says, to maximize the benefit to society, because all of us are doing the research for ourselves, for the society. So yes, we must do the research. So you need to not just do the research, but do it well. And when we say that do it well, this entire ethical consideration is a part of do it well. So we must do research, but we must do it ethically. So this was from my side. Thank you very much. I extend my sincere thanks. Yes, when I am talking about ethics, most important thing I should share, because there are presentation ethics. So when I was like searching for this this FDP, I came across with this beautiful article written by Miss Pritha Bhandari, and most of the content from this presentation comes from this article. Also, I have taken help from a few presentation online. I could get this presentation. So yes, ethically, I need to give credit to them, and ultimately, I need to extend my sincere thanks to GAP, Preeti Madam, as well as the organizers for providing me the opportunity to be a part of this FDP and this intellectual gathering. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of my friends, I would like to thank you for this wonderful session, sir. We all are happy that you conducted such a wonderful session, because somewhere we wanted this to happen, because everyone is, on the initial, and some of them are, progressing with the research. And ethics is such a topic which we all should be aware about while, doing our research. So thank you once
sir.
again,
Thank
sir.
you, Dr. Ritesh Gujarati, sir. He is always a very, special speaker in all our events. And most of the time, when the event is surrounded with a lot of social science and humanities based, sir provides that extra, spark about pure science, medical science. And thank you, sir. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Now, immediately, without wasting much time, we are starting with our valedictory session. I welcome Professor Dr. Panse ma'am, Principal, MD College. I welcome Maithili Mukund ma'am. I welcome Maithili Mukund ma'am. I welcome Dr. Kishan Pawar sir, Dr. Sangeeta Kongre ma'am. From our Grand Academic Portal, I welcome our President, Dr. Sangeeta Johri ma'am, Dr. Shalini Rana ma'am, Vice Principal, Vice President, Dr. Anita Patel ma'am, and the entire GAP team. Request Madam Principal as the main guest of our valedictory session to say a few words, ma'am.
Thank you, Preeti. All the dignitaries present here and my dear participants, I wish you all a very good evening to all. And I was listening to this session also, a very lucid and very beautiful session. Today is the last day of our 1-week workshop on comprehensive research methodology. And I'm very grateful to GAP Foundation, especially Dr. Preeti, founder and CEO, and Dr. Jappi, who is the chairperson, for signing an MOU with Maharishi Dayanand College and helping us to conduct this workshop. Network of GAP has reached far and wide to more than 15 states in our country. And without that, we would not have got so many participants in such a small time. GAP actually is Gyan Adhyan Parampara. It is a very young NGO. And I must say, all brains were put together in this 8 days, and you have provided the best teaching learning platform in this workshop. Lot of important topics were covered, right from academic research and academic writing, data collection, research design, review of literature, testing of hypotheses, data analysis, online resources, how to publish research papers in authentic journals, how to access to open access resources, and how you can increase your visibility. I would like to thank all our resource persons who are the stars of this program. And I would like to mention everybody's name: Dr. Jayant Gopal, Dr. Anuradha, Dr. Kavita Indapurkar, Dr. Mamta Brahma Bhatta, Dr. Sangeeta Johri, Dr. Preeti Oza, Dr. Belur Bakshi, Professor Vijayakant Verma, Dr. Madhuri, Dr. Gurudatta Jappi, Dr. Ritesh Gujarati. Without all your inputs, this workshop would not have been a success. Dear participants, remember, innovation distinguishes between a leader and follower, as said by Steve Jobs. You have learned the proper methodology, use it, and come out with something very innovative. Always believe that you can do it. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. Research is keep trying. You rather attempt to do something great and fail than to not attempt and succeed. Most important part when you are a researcher is plan and schedule to achieve your research milestone. To be a good researcher, one has to be hardworking, imaginative, show perseverance, patience, and be focused. Great discoveries are outcome of future dreams of genius. I would like to tell you a small story about Thomas Edison. You all are aware that Edison was very young. He was 7 years old and attended a school in a city which is called Huron in US in the state of Michigan. He was not good in his studies at all, and his friends would make a lot of fun of him. After 6 months, the teacher sends a letter to his mom with the child, and the child is not aware what is written in that letter. Edison asks his mom what is in the letter. Mom is shocked and tears roll down her eyes. She tells the child, "My dear boy, you are intelligent. There is no good teacher to teach you. From tomorrow, you will not go to school." And his mom teaches him at home. Today, we call it as homeschooling. He completes his home education and he starts working in railways. But there is a desire in him to do something extraordinary. So he starts his own laboratory. Sorry for that bell. He starts his own laboratory, his hard work, and he starts self-learning. And what happens is that all his hard work makes him an inventor. Thus, he invents his first incandescent light and proves to his friends that he is genius. Then one day, he gets the letter which the teacher has written to his mom. And he reads, "Your child is poor in studies and expelled out from school." And he remembers why his mom was crying. So friends, what you require is you have to be focused, you have to be hardworking and perseverance. And I'm sure after this 8 days workshop with different topics, you are ready to carry out your further research. I will end with Dr. APJ Kalam's quote, "All of us don't have equal talent, but all of us have equal opportunity to develop our talent." So thank you very much. Thank you, GAP, and thank you, students, for making this a grand success.
Thank you, Madam Principal, for such a wonderful words and acknowledging and thanking us. It would not have been possible without the support of the entire staff of MD College and students, and especially you, ma'am. Within a very short time, you just agreed to go ahead with this FDP, and then we put it together. And today is the last day, successful completion. So thank you so much on behalf of Grand Academic Portal. We would like to invite Dr. Kishan Pawar, sir, the convener of the FDP, to say a few words, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Preeti Oja, ma'am. Respected Principal, ma'am, Chaya Panse, ma'am, today's special chief guest, and the founder and chairman of GAP, Dr. Guru Datta Japi, sir, Dr. Vaishali Somni, ma'am, our IQAC coordinator, MD College, Maithili Mukundarajan, ma'am, head and head department of English and vice principal arts faculty, MD College, and Dr. Preeti Oja, founder and CEO of GAP, Dr. Sangeeta Johari, ma'am, president of GAP, Dr. Sangeeta Kongre, organizer of this FDP, and assistant professor in English, MD College. Professor Shalini Rana ma'am, Vice President of GAP. Dr. Anita Patel ma'am, Secretary of GAP. Dr. Kunal Soni, MD College, organizer of this FDP. And all the respected speakers, resource persons, and all the participants in this FDP. I welcome you wholeheartedly on this closing note and this valedictory program of FDP on research methodology. As a convener, I need to tell you why this workshop. My principal, Dr. Chaya Panse ma'am, told me, I think a month ago or 1.5 month ago, that we need to take a research methodology workshop for our researchers, because we have in our college the centers for 7 subjects, PhD research centers for 7 subjects, and we are presently guiding more than 24 researchers. So we ourselves are such a big institution. But then we thought this should be taken to a national level, and then Preeti Oja ma'am joined us in terms of her GAP NGO, and then with her support and her expertise, we have taken this to a national level. Dear friends, when we go for research in the degree like PhD, everybody wonders how to start, where to start, and they actually learn first how to think about it. Research begins in the mind somewhere when you think critically, and that is exactly where the researcher in us is born. The role of a supervisor comes very late. It is you, the researcher, who wants to bring something into this world. You are adding directly in the bank of knowledge, in the universe of the knowledge. You are adding something to that. You are not just digging up one grave and putting those bones into another grave. It is something that you are adding to the bank of knowledge, to the world of knowledge. So this is knowledge creation. We are not only researching in the searched areas, but we are creating something. And we have to, if you remember, we have a thesis statement and then the utility of this, the objective. What does that mean? What are we going to do new in the world of, of our subject? How our research is going to help the society? If we don't do this research, what will happen to the world without my research? We should know it. In humanities, in science, in commerce, everywhere, our research adds up to the betterment of humanity. We are constructing the country somewhere. We are constructing humanity somewhere. Without research, I remember 2 years back, I went to SRT University to conduct a viva as an external. And there was, this candidate was an Iranian one. He came from Iran. And all he told me about, I just asked him, what difference do you find out in between India and Iran? And he said, sir, our tragedy is that our country does not have the thinking politicians. We don't have the thinkers in our country. We are so jealous of you that you are having the bestest possible thinkers of the world in your country only. And he took the names right from the philosophy of Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna, and Vedas. And then he came to Mahatma Gandhi, then Savarkar, and then Tilak, and then Dr. Ambedkar, and to the modern thinkers who made India possible. And that is why We, the Indians, only could remove these Britishers from India. No other country could do this, but we did this only because of the base that we had in our culture. And this is, and our Rishi Munis were doing the research. They did research in the mountains of Himalayas. That meditation that we call was actually a research. And that is how we have constructed this country. That is how we have brought the history of this country to this level. And today, every country knows about India. It's because of this history. And we are so lucky that we are born in this. And we are using this technology with the past, the great past that we have, to make our future better. So research is not everybody's cup of tea. Research is something that gives us an opportunity to give something creative, something new to the world of humanity. And that is how we simplify, we beautify, and we make this world worth living with the help of research. So I express my heartfelt gratitude to all the resource persons, to Preeti Ojha madam for taking this initiative, and the soul of GAP, Dr. Japi sir, Preeti Ojha ma'am, and others. I just named them, like our Sangeeta Johari ma'am, Shalini Rana ma'am, Anita Patel. Without you, this wouldn't have been possible. So I take this opportunity to express our heartfelt gratitude on behalf of my college, my management, Dr. Chaya Panse ma'am, our principal, and everybody that helped us to make this happen possible, and to make this happen so smoothly. And I congratulate all the participants for having completed this. And I know now you must be feeling as
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your words and all the wishes you have given. I now request Dr. Sangeeta ma'am to please share her words on this occasion. Ma'am, please.
Ma'am, is it Sangeeta Kongre?
Yeah, it's Sangeeta Kongre from Sangeeta Johari. Yeah.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On behalf of Department of English, we really thank the brains behind this FDP, Dr. Preeti Ojha madam, JP sir, and all the entire team of GAP for giving this wonderful and a very creative workshop on research methodology. Thank you very much, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Sangeeta ma'am. And I think on screen we all should give a round of applause to our own CEO ma'am, Dr. Preeti Ojha ma'am, for being continuously be with all of you for 6-7 days, 3 hours in a day. It's really been very tough to manage all the fronts, but we actually follow ma'am sometimes, and we are really actually finding it hard to have the energy like ma'am is having. So thank you, ma'am, for giving this opportunity to all the participants. And I hope the outcome of this particular workshop, FDP, what we call it as, will be when all the participants now will start writing a research paper with a different mindset. Because obviously those who have participated in this must be indulged in academic writings earlier, also in research writings, but the shape which is being provided by this comprehensive research methodology actually changes the thought process of the participants, and they now understand that how we have to start. As I also in my own session mentioned that this kind of workshop, and yesterday also after listening to Japi's session, I said that the entire thing, from where we have to begin and from where we have to end, that entire comprehensive you can say idea is being given by this workshop, and I hope the participants must have got that, and now they must be excited to give their writings for the submission of our own GAP journals. We are looking forward for the creative, for the original research writings from all the young researchers who have joined us in this group. I think, Preeti ma'am, we are going to share the feedback link in the group itself, in our WhatsApp group.
Yes, thank you, Sangeeta.
So there only we will be sharing.
Yes, here we are putting the link,
feedback link over there, and we will be sharing the certificates in that group only. So
the group, yes.
That group, do not leave that group. And I think for a couple of hours, we will open also that group for
Yes.
having good feedbacks and valuable remarks of our own participants, because that is most important thing. We close the loop on the feedback of the participants. However, I am continuously reading the greetings and the good positive remarks from all the participants. So as I always say, I'm very happy to be part of GAP family, and every time I learn something new out of my own colleagues and always get energy to write something new after attending such kind of workshop. I extend gratitude to Principal Ma'am for giving this opportunity to GAP. Looking forward for such wonderful opportunities in the future. And I think we'll also share the link for the membership.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you, Sangeeta ma'am. And just one or two announcements on behalf of GAP for all the participants. Research papers submitted by the participants of this particular FDP. It will be free for publication, free review, and we have total 6 journals on behalf on the portal of GAP, Grand Academic Portal. And we'll be sharing all the links in the WhatsApp group very soon. Another very important thing, please do not leave that WhatsApp group, because we have been sharing a lot of other event detail and many other, books and content material regularly in almost every FDP group. So if it is not very troublesome, do not leave that particular group. We also extend our hearty welcome to Dr. Principal Ma'am, Dr. Kishan Pawar sir, and Dr. Maithili Mukund Ma'am on the editorial board of GAP journals now, as they are our official, MOU partners. So most welcome on the editorial board of GAP journals. And as I've told you, we have got 6 international journals, and one of the journal is UGC Care listed. So it's an honor and privilege to welcome you 3 very supportive and strong members on the editorial board of GAP journals. Looking forward to your support, ma'am. Thank you. And we are going to keep the link open for next 10 minutes. And thank you all for all the supports, and see you soon on some different platform, but some mutually, benefiting session. Thank you so much.
May I just have one word, please?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want everyone to switch on your video so that we can click.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Yeah, that's what actually I was also thinking. But
yeah. Yes, please, everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I just want to end by saying, thank you. So very my heartfelt gratitude and a very special big thanks to my department gentleman, Dr. K.H. Pawar and Dr. Preeti Oza madam, to be there with us throughout, right from day one, and making this workshop a grand success. Without Dr. K.H. Pawar, I am sure that we would not have conducted this program so fast. Thank you, Dr. Pawar and the team. Thanks to everyone. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So those who are filling up the feedback form may leave the meeting. Thank you all very much. Meeting will be on for next 10 minutes, but only to fill up the form. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.